All right. Hey guys, introducing another artist for Artist Spotlight is Beat Reichenbach. Bath. Birth. I can't. But yeah, man.
It's all good.
Welcome to the channel, and yeah, it's good to talk to you about your work and just you in general and your life and all that
Yeah,
cool
thank you
shit.
for having me.
But yeah, it's all good, man.
Nice
I
meeting you.
I've been trying to do these. I'm probably a bit optimistic. I wanted to do like one a day with people, but like but I probably too. I tend to work too hard, so I'm like going to scale back. But I really wanted to do um, a YouTube thing where I'm talking to artists and talking to you guys about like more than like kind of work and just bit of life and where you come from and like how you started doing this and like even just like it's like very much like a podcast type of thing and like the
hmm
things that you've gone through to get to where you are. And I think like like the in between of like trying to do all this, which because it's so like breaking into the industry is really hard, and being like it's so competitive these days. Like it's super competitive, and standing out in this industry where there's so many awesome artists is really difficult. And just talking about that and your process and things like that. But I guess I'll start off like uh, how did you even just like get into the industry? What made you like do it?
So, first, before I start, I actually really liked the few videos that you did with the last one with Matthias. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Matthias. It was super cool to just see like see into people's work files.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
so
I
neat to
love
get
seeing in
like an
people's work
insight,
files.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then how you always push him, hey, show us the wire, and
yeah.
it does like not like it matters at all for anyone, right? But it's just
I
kind
think
of
it does.
cool.
I think
I
there's so
mean,
much art. It,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's like an art, but like in professional life or anything, like
Mm,
I feel like it matters less and less, and so it's just kind of cool to see behind the scene. It's like almost like a behind the scenes of
yeah.
people. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's like that's why I asked you. Just like get all your work and like
Yeah.
all the little things because that's the I reckon that's the fun stuff. It's
Yeah.
not fun for like I don't know if you find the process making art fun. You know how some people don't like find the process making art fun. They find the end
hmm
result making art fun, or they find the opposite. They find the process, and then once they're done, they want to like quickly move on to something else. They can't like.
Right.
I'm not sure if you're like that, but
Yeah. So for me, I started a long time ago. Well, for me, it sounds like a long time ago in I think 2007 or something like that in with
mm,
Blender, and I was
okay,
in high school and was just for the longest time like tried to get to do cool 3D work with Blender,
mm,
and I was just kind of uh, stuck, and I felt like I was missing out on the secret tricks of how to get actually good at it,
yeah,
because for years I was just kind of modeling things, but the level of uh, the really good artists and me, it was just so the distance between those two were so great.
mm,
I had almost no idea how to approach it. So I was looking into going to school for that, because I simply um, felt like doing it by myself did not work, and I didn't know of anything else I would do.
yeah,
Seemed like all I want to do was just kind of do the 3D stuff at Blender, and then I went to got declined by a bunch of schools because I was terrible at drawing.
oh really?
Um,
That
yeah,
sucks. Yeah,
um, uh,
you actually got
and
declined from you paying them money to go and study. Like you got
yeah,
declined. Wow, that's
because just my 2D portfolio was
just
terrible. Like it
so
was
bad.
literally stick figures,
Okay.
and it was like, all right, I'm gonna draw these stick figures as poses, because I
Yeah.
never, I mean, I drew as a child, but not anything better after. And so eventually I got into school, and I kind of learned, because all the masters, they always said learn the fundamentals. You gotta learn 2D
Mm,
uh, to be good at 3D, and I always hated it because it's just I didn't enjoy it, but I knew I
yeah.
had to do it. And so
Yeah.
I was just hammering through all the figure drawing, and eventually I got good at it. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, now I get it why they said it.
Yeah.
But for the longest time I didn't enjoy it, and I just kind of forced myself to do all those the
Yeah.
traditional work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that's I did a little bit. I didn't develop my skill as high as my 3D skill though. I still did it because I enjoyed it in that way. But once you start 3D, you kind of get addicted to the fact that it is 3D, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. But at that point, so you actually did you end up studying, or did you just develop your 2D skills and kind of go on your
So
way?
I went
Or,
for like 1 year. I did traditional skills like figure drawing, perspective drawing,
mm.
com- composition, and then for 2 years I went to the M.A.N school
Oh yeah.
in Hollywood, and
Yeah.
that was 2 years of fully focused on 3D classes. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much where I learned most of the things that I kind of know now. And I also the teachers, they were industry professionals that
Yeah.
after work or before work they came and taught classes. So that was kind of like what I was looking for in high school, was just
Mm.
people to ask all these questions, and then
Yeah.
they just had, this is how we do it, working on movies. And that was
Yeah.
so mind blowing to me that you could just ask all these questions that I had for years on how
Yeah.
to properly actually do
Yeah.
things.
That must be
Um,
cool. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so
like
I
that.
really enjoyed that.
It's kind of like freedom for you to finally, get those answers. It's like when I first started, didn't have any of that, and you just had like tutorials on the internet, and you're like, that's kind of like the thing you'd see a tutorial and like, oh, that's how you do that thing, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like that, that unopening of that secret. It's someone's everyone's technique is just it's almost like a time driven thing where they just figured out a method to doing something. They just eventually you just figure something out, and then you're able to condense it down into a certain methodology and explain it
Yeah.
to other people after years of doing it. But and it just gets, that's why we have that rate of improvement. Like if someone's starting off now, they're like way better than someone who started off 10 years ago, because it's more knowledge is around, and it just gets
Hmm.
that kind of like spurred up, that spin effect of just people get better and better, quicker and quicker. But yeah. So
I often wonder now how, like, if it would be easier if I would have start now,
yeah,
if it would
could
be easier.
probably
But
be, I think.
yeah, it might
Yeah.
be, but it's still like to this day I feel it's it almost needed, it was like a hurdle, and I needed to get over that hurdle. And then as soon as I got over that hurdle and learned all those
Yeah.
fundamental things, it, like, it's almost like a switch turned, and I felt like, okay, now I kind of can learn almost anything, and I can even
Yeah.
learn stuff by myself. And it like kind of worked that way.
You finally know what it requires you to learn something. And I think
Yeah.
often some people just don't go through that. It's like, I always compare it to it not a little bit like, when you do a concept, or you do it like just a really rough concept of something, but then you never
Hmm.
finish it. It's like they're two different things. So when you actually finish something versus just roughing it out, because it requires
Right.
like this next step of like learning and patience. Because to look at the same thing, it's like when you're learning something, you have to really hunker down and let it sink in, and you have to understand it, and then
Hmm.
you apply it, and then you have to actually be, once you apply it, you actually have to be good at it, and then you actually have to be like actually producing something that's like almost it's not like a second, like you're not getting stuck on steps, you're just doing it. It's like driving a car that's a manual car, and you know how to do it blindly, and you got everything down. And yeah, that's when you've kind of like it's like that second nature thing.
Hmm.
That's really when you can like start pumping work out in that way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost as soon as you know how to drive a car, you can drive a car and learn while driving the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So yeah,
yeah.
it is weird like that, but it's, yeah, I always find it interesting that people think just they try and be quick at stuff, instead of just being efficient at stuff. And I was listening to like a podcast that like Tim Ferriss said that if you're distracted, you're better off. They did a study. You're better off being like stoned rather than say if they did a study on people and they said people who are stoned got more done than people who weren't stoned, because when you're stoned, you're not as easily distracted. You kind of get really focused, and you're like,
Mm.
I'm not sure if you've been stoned before, but you get really
Yeah,
focused in on the work that you do.
I
So when you're
see.
naturally, and it just goes to show, like, if you're more efficient with your time and you're not like checking things every 5 minutes, or you're not having messages in every 5 minutes, like that's more important. You get more
Right.
done being more efficient than like trying to do things faster. So yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of also um, maybe I should also say, like, when we kind of set up this meeting, right? I also ask you, hey, let's talk about copying other people's work,
Oh yeah,
specifically,
yeah,
right? So that
yeah.
kind of also leads a little bit into that, because for me, halfway through Noman, I kind of realized what I really want to do, or what I really enjoy, or like maybe obviously that always can changes, but I guess it changed drastically from what I first wanted to do. I always loved modeling, and I thought I'm gonna become like character artist or
Mm,
creature artist, and I was really into monsters and sculpting and just modeling. I modeled so many cars,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
thought I could do this for the rest of my life.
Oh really?
But then I had this one teacher, Miguel Ortega. He is like a creature artist, but he also became like a filmmaker, and
Yeah,
he did a great short film called the Nino. It was all about monsters, and he saw one of the creatures that I was working on
mm,
for his class, and he said, "All right, but you have to put that into a shot, into a
yeah.
scene." And I was like, what do you mean? Can I not just have it in grayscale? And he kind of knew that, like he really pushed me to
Mm,
put it into some sort of a shot. So I kind of took a concept art that I saw on ArtStation. I was like, it would be cool if it was on that concept art. And I did
mm,
a super quick mock-up of like a 3D projection setup, where I took that concept art, put my creature on it, and kind of rendered a camera push in. And
yeah,
there was not much happening, but it was just kind of a push in and a little bit of a 3D scene, the still life.
yeah,
It kind of like, it made me realize that, like, oh, that's so much cooler, like
yeah,
lighting things, cinematography,
yeah.
composition.
It can
and
make or break a design. I
mhm.
say, yeah, it really can.
And so yeah, from that moment on, I kind of like shifted to go from model and modeling and sculpting to more cinematography and
Mm,
kind of shot work.
yeah.
um,
There's
yeah.
yeah, there's so much more art form in that, and just having a good camera angle makes all the difference. Like you see people who don't pay any attention to like lighting and color and like your camera angle. Like
Mhm.
I would spend ages on those things to get them right, because if you spend so long on like doing the design and trying to get it, and then you
Mhm.
just like you ask people and they spend no time. They like, I don't spend any time on the rendering. You're like, well, this is why it looks like shit. So it's
But at the same time, I feel now that I started liking that, I feel I'm
you
never going to spend enough time learning proper design that I
ah,
can be as good as someone like you, or even
I
any
think you
other
can.
people,
I, I think you
and
can.
doing the lighting and
Yeah.
all that other stuff that I
Mm,
really kind of enjoy. So
yeah.
at that moment, I kind of started to just, all right, I'm just gonna kind of take that concept, make a map painting that really follows. I can show, kind of show a breakdown of that,
Yeah.
like how I took the concept and made a map painting from it. But in my mind, I thought, well, why would I try to design something if that's not really what I'm going for? Just someone
Mm,
already designed a great piece.
yeah.
Um, would it not make more sense to just use their design and
Someone else's
create a
design. Create a
yeah,
shot. Mm.
create a shot? So I always
I
try
guess it's
to, like,
concept art then, right? Isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like taking someone's concept art and just taking it and making it, making something new from it, making a shot
Yeah.
out of their concept art. So I'm not
I th-
sure.
I think there's room for balancing everything in a weird way. I think there is that room to balance everything. Well, because you want to ask, it's like, is it good to copy? I would say it's good and bad. Like, if you can recognize that you've copied something, and then you have that association that's someone else's work, then you're kind of giving them more credit. This is why I look at like people who make like just Marvel characters and all that. You're indirectly, you're kind of almost indirectly discrediting yourself and what you have up here to make cool ideas. And then you're just like, I'm going to make, it's kind of like, say if someone had a Ferrari and they copied the Ferrari, right? And that's all you did. What happens if like you copied a Ferrari? You're able to copy a Ferrari, right? Let's say you can go in your garage and copy a Ferrari. Why not just do something your own? Like, and then you've got this amazing thing that because you're able to analyze a Ferrari and copy it, right? And make it just as cool. So that means you have the ability to recognize a good design and execute things, because you can actually learn. It's just the confidence to do it in that way. And I always think every artist, if you're an artist, you've got cool ideas. It's just finding them, swifting through them, and like tuning it. And
Right, but
yeah,
that takes time, right? The design process takes time,
yeah.
and
Let's
then
say, okay, let's say,
doing the whole shot work also
all right,
takes time.
I'll give you the argument. Okay, you got Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd's pretty
Yeah.
cool design, right? That design is going to be around for like another 50 years. Okay. And it'll get a little bit more tuned throughout the thing, just a tiny bit more tuned. You can't change it too much, even like Warhammer. And you're talking about that you can't design something, right? But all these designs, they're so iconic and so well designed in the first place, or just been around long enough to like stick in the psychology of everyone, and the story behind it has been really well developed, that you can do that. You could like go, you say you want to do all these backgrounds and like cinematography, that you go, I'm going to make this character, right? And I'm going to grow it through 4 or 5 different shots. And it's going to be doing this in that next shot. It's going to be doing that in the next shot. It's going to be shooting something in the next shot. And so you've grown this iconic character over 4 or 5 shots. And so when people see that, they get a familiarity with it. And so if you got a design and you just copied it, they have the familiarity of that design with something else, right? But if you went and tuned it over each 5 shot, and by the 5th shot, your design's just a little bit more tuned, and you've gone in just like changed a little bit here and there, like you've got something for yourself. And then in your head, because you'll start like, I'm not sure if you worked on anything before, and you're like, I'm going to do this story, and they come out of this thing, and then they have to go there, and you slowly write a story to all your designs. Like it's in you, but you have these ideas that if you can start to write a bit of a story behind your work, it helps to cater in towards the work, like how it looks and things like that. And then people can become emotionally attached to those things, and you can just like start writing little bits. It's one of those things that you chip away at things slowly. You don't aim big first, because you're like, when you aim really big, you fail, right? Like if I work on something, I'm like, I'm going to do this little part first. And I know the whole project's daunting, but I'm just going to do this part. And I have to be like, well, this is going to be a lot of work. But if I just start here, I can work my way out, right? And it's kind of like, it's like that. I think when you start copying, you never develop that skill set that all these other people went out and did their own thing. And I think every artist deserves to have their own thing out there, because it's like you're constantly just pushing up all these other franchises when you've got like your own cool franchise and you've got your own cool idea. And I think that's why we see a lot of people like, there's no cool new franchises anymore. Like, I mean, or they milk existing franchises, and then you're like, it's because everyone just wants to copy everyone else. There's not one like recipe for everything. There isn't. Like, there's multitudes of different iterations of different things. And those people who, like the person who made RoboCop, like he went out there and made RoboCop. He probably got inspired by someone else's, but say if he copied like a RoboCop from someone else, it's just like someone else's RoboCop. And it's like, well, where's the original RoboCop? And the thing is, they tried to remake RoboCop, and it was shit. And they're trying to do it again. The thing is, and they realize they just have to do the same thing, right? You can't, like, that's what I mean. Like, derivatives rarely work, but sometimes work. So I always think it's better to not be a derivative, but to be inspired. And that's why I always say to people who I teach, I'm like, don't copy me, just be inspired by me. And no one wants to do that. Like, is that a good
It's
argument for you?
yeah. I mean, let me just share my screen so we have also something
Yeah.
to look at. If that's cool with you.
No, it's good. It's the whole point of doing this. So
So yeah, this is what I was talking about. Yeah, I mean, you're I think somewhere I have the concept art. Um, so I basically made a map painting. I can't believe I don't have the concept art in the comp. I'm actually have to go get it. Um, but basically, I was doing um, reference. So yeah, this was the concept art here.
yeah.
I'm gonna drag it in here, and and
Is there
this
like
was
a loose story
the
behind it, or?
of this was
Mm,
just something I wanted to have my creature on the beach, so I literally just kind of went and like googled for ArtStation and just googled a cool beach, and
yeah.
then I made a map painting um, based on that concept art, like with based on photos and actually like a map painting. But I thought that was such a cool composition with the rock and everything. um why not just use that, right? So this was what I was talking about with my project. This is
Yeah.
and this kind of was the first project where I realized that I like, more than spending time drawing 2D concept art
Yeah.
and doing that, the technical aspect of it, like coming up with technical solutions, is
Mm.
almost more fun for me. Like the map painting itself, creating that, the technical aspects of putting the cards in
It's
and all that.
so
It's almost
you could
like,
explain. I haven't touched. Well, I haven't looked into Nuke. You could explain what Nuke is and things like that just to people. So because
oh, okay,
yeah, it would be
yeah,
interesting
for
to
sure.
just explain a little bit while you're showing work, just
Hmm.
what I guess how you got to this result and the breakdown of you do this and um, but yeah, that's so. What are you saying? Were you saying you've copied this? I don't assume you've copied this. This looks pretty unique, isn't it?
Well, so this is the concept art. Let me make it a little bit. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Um, so this is the concept art, and then this is the my shot from it. I mean,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
what I kind of mean with me copying stuff, right?
Ah, that's I don't. That's
So
different.
so
So,
that's kind of what I mean when I say copying stuff. And
well,
like
are
I'm
you
taking
copying?
ideas, I'm taking the
Yeah.
idea, I'm copying the color script, or like the colors from it, the composition, and then I kind of like do the technical aspect on it, I guess, and
But that's
put it
your
in, make it
concept,
into a
right?
shot.
That's your concept.
This
Yeah.
is no, this is
It's not.
Thomas Corpi.
Okay.
Thomas Corpi. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is what I found on ArtStation.
The thing is, you wouldn't even have to copy anyone's. You could probably find a shot like that and just use it. I guess.
Probably if you're a
Yeah.
designer, yeah. If you have that designer stuff in you, right, and you're
Well,
really
it
into
looks
that,
like a shot from a beach that's just being taken. You could find a shot
yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, you could, and then comp it. You're just comping your creature in. But
Right. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I totally
Mm,
understand. I think what you mean as well.
yeah.
Because it's in the end, yeah, I kind of built um this map painting and made it out of like many photos and kind of like stitched it together. And
Yeah.
then in Nuke, you can build like a 3D scene with cards. So I
Okay.
just kind of projected the different Photoshop layers onto cards, and this is super simple. So this whole mountain is on one
So
single card.
you've redone the shot. You haven't used the original image. Is that what?
No,
Yeah.
no, the original image I haven't used at all. So
I wouldn't say
this
that's inspiration. That's not
so
copying.
this is
That's
all
yeah.
completely based on photos from
Yeah.
Google. This is all photo based, and then the mountain. This is all like standard map painting
Yeah.
process of like finding photos and then making a Photoshop file. And then you can render that out with the camera in Nuke. And I like Googled a beach and this is like some beach footage on YouTube, and then I put that back here just so I have some movement. Then I got some birds, a footage of birds, put that up here.
And you can animate in Nuke. I assume this is
You can
you can animate.
animate,
Is
so
is
it's
that
like
why you're
basically
doing
like
it?
Photoshop. It's basically like Photoshop, but for different with frames, right?
Yeah.
So you have all the functionality of Photoshop, but you have also a timeline,
Yeah. And
and it's just node based.
so
Yeah.
the reason why you use this over Photoshop is because just the flexibility to put cards in, or the animation
That
capabilities.
animation,
Yeah.
so that I can make a shot. So my birds are actually
Okay.
moving.
Yeah.
The YouTube video of the little uh, the water is actually splashing on the beach,
Okay.
and yeah, that's basically
So
it.
how?
And then this is my render, my
Yeah.
3D render out of my
Yeah.
that I
It's
sculpted.
looking pretty cool so far. I'd say it's a little bit, maybe, I guess it's a dark day though, but it's hard to,
Yeah,
if you brought the light just slightly over more the creature, so like you got that kind of rim light on top of the head, just to make it pop out a little bit, just a
yeah,
little bit. But yeah, it's hard because it's one of those days where there's not much light. So, but yeah, it's
right.
so with the waves and stuff, how are you doing that in Nuke?
So basically the waves. Well, I used this. So this is, by the way, this was my like early on in my school career. We can also look at a later Nuke script. I'm like, there's many years of work experience in
Yeah.
between, but this is just like one of my first projects where I kind of like realized, all right, I want to do something different than just making assets. So in this scene, you can create kind of just null objects, and then transform those null objects into 2D space. So then you have a point in 2D space that basically moves uh, in 2D space, and then all I did was move this beach with that null object in 2D space, so it kind of tracks. It basically tracks on along with the rest of the camera move,
Okay.
and then I think it's just hue correct, a little bit of a grade, and then it's masked out
And that's
and
actual footage.
put on top. Yeah, that was a video on YouTube that I
Yeah.
found, and I
And you,
just downloaded the video from
and
YouTube.
and you can do like a certain blend layers to get it the
Yep,
edges to blend better. Okay, that's cool.
totally.
Yeah.
And then same with like birds. So these are just some birds that I found, and then you just grade them so they fit in, and then it's simple over. So over is just a normal blend
Yeah.
mode. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
and then
Is
this is the render, the straight up render out of CG that goes in.
I
Yeah.
guess, yeah. That's cool. I like that. It's an interest. I've always wondered what people use Nuke for, and I guess
Mm,
this is it to it's it because you know how you build things up is in any type of work you build layers up to get that result, and
yeah.
when you can break
I
it
can
down.
also open up one of the later projects that, let me see really quick, where the comps are a little bit more complex, where it looks like more what it would look like in a production setting as well.
Do you have clients asking you for like little animations like this, or
So
anyone?
I've been working basically since I left school. I was working at Blur Studio, and so it's I just work in straight in production where we do the commercials, and it's just straight up shot work.
Mm.
So
So
very
I
similar
really
to
like this one. This one's cool. I really
kind
like
of
it.
like that. Oh,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit more the way it would be in production, done in
Yeah.
production. So we kind of render the different parts separately. So we would render the background environment separate, and then I rendered the whole mech. Same in between. I got some cards. So this is a footage of smoke. I think I actually got that from school. One of our teachers gave that to us. And then you have a 2D mode and a 3D mode. So in 3D, I place a card of smoke again. I have my camera that I made in 3D, and then I layer that in. Oh, sorry about that. And then I layer the mech over,
Yeah.
and then the character, just so I have more control over them. And if something should change, I can only re-render the characters, and I don't have to re-render
Yeah.
everything.
You have to. Yeah.
Some effects. A friend of mine was doing the effects for the shot.
So how were the metal effects and the glow done? Is that just a textured separate effect, or
I think that was
luminosity?
just just painted in. Yeah. So I
Okay.
just painted a mask with like a self-illuminating material
Yeah.
for these things, right?
Just in Photoshop, and then you set the.
This was substance design,
Okay.
substance painter. Basically, it kind of I think I
Okay.
made like
Yeah.
a thickness based on thickness. I kind of like painted the edges. The damage is sculpted in ZBrush and then put into Substance Painter. Yeah.
That's really cool. It's really effective. Works well.
And so all this is also based on a concept. So obviously here in this one, I like try to kind of look at I was looking at Interstellar, but the whole project was also based on a concept art by Marek Ocon. So this was his concept art, and you can kind of see like
Mm.
everything. Yeah, for me, I almost like the process of creating the shot more than
Yeah.
design,
Yeah.
and I almost feel like I want to have some sort of shortcut and
Yeah.
kind of like take what looks cool from other
Well,
people to use
you
in
are.
my
Yeah.
project.
I do. I just saw what you mean by copying, because you are
Yeah.
copying. It's an interesting area that you are doing. I think you shouldn't. It's not like you got to feel guilty about it, but you're doing something that's like a You're doing something that they would do inside of a studio. You're doing it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
I
interesting.
think so. So it's almost like what I like doing at home is
Yeah,
trying to figure out how to be better at the studio.
that's pretty interesting. I guess it's like well, the question is, if you weren't at a studio, like, would you still be doing this at home? Like, how would you still be doing like this the same thing at home, or
I think so, because what it, I have a weird love for this technical things. So
mm,
um, even though I like designing in a way, like taking this I like taking this concept that is pretty rough on the shapes and everything,
yeah,
but then I kind of like designing it, but then I know that other people like Vitali, for example, who's doing these hard surface parts, he already figured out the way to make it look cool.
yeah,
So it's almost like I want to shortcut
to
to
to get,
awesomeness.
yeah, yeah. I get you now. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wanted to do renders like that, and the thing is, it's so much work.
Hmm.
That's it's like it is so much work because you got to make the cool design, make the design really finished and polished, and then you
Yeah.
got to do that, and it's like so much work. But well, I guess if I ever like have a project, I could probably like chuck it to you, and you can like do something to it if you like, because I'm always willing to see
Yeah.
things get put in a different way. From it's always fun to see how someone will take your work and then put it into something. It's kind of
Mm.
like when you've made a character for a movie, and then you start seeing it in the movie, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Right? I didn't think they were going to do that with it, or they just kind of like build up on it, which is great because I think that's what kind of what you want to do. And you're doing, yeah, I can see what you mean. It's
Yeah, so this shape, for example, I'm pretty sure you could go on Vitali's Kipash and
mm,
find something where I'm pretty sure where I copied like parts of this and just kind of I wanted to learn how can I make what he does in
mm,
Maya with booleans and like kind of come up with a really good workflow that works for me,
yeah,
but almost like uh, for me to learn that the placement of like almost like the composition of details, right?
mm,
It takes a time to kind of understand that the placement of these details, that you can't just put them everywhere. There's a
yeah,
certain almost composition to them, that maybe you have like 30% distance here and then 70% distance here, and kind of like these compositions that work from
mm,
far away or whatnot. All
yeah.
that stuff I personally have a really hard time learning. So
The
for me
kind
it's
of
almost like a shortcut
mm,
when I can look at something and be like, oh, this works, let me
yeah,
do this, and
yeah.
then I can learn that way of what works in a way.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's definitely it's a funny area that you're in because you're like the guy that brings shit together. Like if you know what I mean,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
the everything's get you do the result that is like the final touch to things that it's like the final result because the final it's everything is in the final result essentially. The render is everything. Like
Right.
it's that's why like you can make a great design and you can just have it like sitting there, and then you can make a great design and render it, and then it's like bang bang bang. You know, it's like another higher level, and you're doing that. I think yeah, I think it's a pretty cool area. I mean, you could even just offer that to artists and go, look, I can make your work cool, and all these artists will hand you all their cool work. It could be very much a area
Right.
that you could do, and somehow I guess because if you enjoy it and love doing it, then you can get all these awesome things. I'll definitely keep you in mind if I had like a say if I made like a full suited piece of armor and a character, and I
Hmm.
go, look, here's the design. You chuck it in a scene, do what the hell you want with it,
Right.
and I could just give you like a backstory or something like that, and to help you out, and you'd be like drop it into a scene, and I'll just be
Right.
surprised what you do with it. It's something that I think you'd get heaps of stuff. To be honest, I think you because
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. But then at that point, it's still kind of fun to do it by yourself, because
yeah,
like, none of the concepts like that I have, like no one did this exact thing, right? So it's
yeah.
almost taking, yeah, it's almost just like taking someone's concept and just kind of making it in 3D
I
by,
reckon you could do the first idea I said of
yeah.
developing a design, like a design that you really like, and just slowly
Hmm.
adding to it with each scene that you do. I reckon do that. Maybe try and grow something like that because you then you can maybe put it into like. I always think artists should grow something instead of just have lots of random stuff. You notice how everyone has all these random things, and there's nothing really uh, anyone to kind of like you know how what's his name, the last man standing, that guy, the Danny, what's his name, Danny Lou,
Nice.
he's
Oh,
yeah,
the LMS, is that
LMS,
the
that's from
book?
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing like that. He's
He has
drawn that
like that
character.
one
Yeah,
masterpiece of
yeah,
like yeah, yeah,
yeah, and
exactly.
that's what I think artists are doing. He's doing it, and that's what I do with like my work. That's why I'll finish a bit of work. I'll pick something that I'm going to finish this design and then make it really good. And because I'll know I want to come back to it and uh, use it. So that's what I think artists should be doing because
Mm.
it's an investment in their art and in themselves. So it's yeah, I can see the area of that you're doing, but it
Yeah.
came out really well. I really enjoyed what you did with that kind of moving it's a moving art piece. Like you could put it on a, you know, like an LED screen on the wall and just have it like a
Yeah.
painting. Like that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Like you
Totally.
should totally do that. That's I reckon that's like the new thing that will happen. I think as artists we could sell like our LED prints that just move, and it'll be like a moving artwork. I think that's probably the next phase because we're moving into that digital age, and it would be cool to see something like that. Because you can imagine if you walked into a room of all these like slightly moving artwork, like idle artwork, and
Yeah.
it's really. I'm not sure if you've been to a museum, but I think they have that with some things, and it would be awesome to see that. I think
It would
that's
almost be cool if there was some sort of an AI that could analyze a piece of artwork and then make a moving piece out of that.
it
Yeah.
probably will be. I think we're going to have this weird, like really weird AI art soon coming around with these randomly generated things. I think people like are afraid of being replaced by these things. I don't think you can ever replace the human artist. I don't think you can. But yeah, I can see. I can see.
Let's see. Let's wait and see.
Do you think you're going to get replaced? I don't think you
Um,
can. I don't think you can replace the human brain. I don't think you can. I think what makes us is so damn special that it's beyond anything that we can comprehend. I think it's maybe thousands of years from now, maybe, but we might
it's
blow
strange
ourselves
that
up
we
before then.
haven't. Yeah, it's strange that we haven't done it with music yet, or
Yeah,
at least I'm not aware of it, because music is so kind of like one-dimensional or like
yeah,
two-dimensional maybe, that I feel like that would be the first
mm.
area, um, because it's just rhythm and tones, right? That's all it
And
is.
finding it out. But I think there's something in the human condition. I think we're too attached to
Yeah,
ourselves to
I can
let
see
let
that
it
too.
let it go to a computer, because you see a lot of things that are already kind of like, it's like comparing old art, like it's like comparing a car that's sculpted partly in the computer or sculpted by hand. We still seem to have this real attachment to the hand sculpted, car, the old hand sculpted Ferrari versus the Ferrari that's kind of more machined, and or it could be the argument that we put a higher price on older things. It could be that as well. But I think that the human imagination seems to. I think we like it over. I think there's always just going to be a divide. That's what I'm probably trying to say. I think the
Hmm.
divide will be there. So what's this one? This is
So this
a
one,
helmet of
this one is
sorts.
the helmet of the same character. So I was first making the character, and then kind of at one point I wanted to do a statue,
Yeah,
like 3D print the character, but I realized that I would be really cool to have her holding something, so the statue would be a little bit asymmetrical. So I
yeah.
built the helmet based on that, and I think, I mean, again, I'm pretty sure you can start seeing things that, like little details that you probably know from somewhere, like the
From
little clips from your designs or from
you from
people's
my
designs.
designs. Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure. I'm sure.
You
Like
mean you
this
just
thing here,
reference things?
straight up copied it.
I don't think. I know that arrow kind of thing, but everyone uses that arrow.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess the
So,
two little things that I tend to put on my things, but
oh,
yeah,
these things. Yeah. So
yeah,
the main shape is based on a F-35 helmet.
yeah,
But then just to kind of like make it a little bit sci-fi, and
mm,
similar with this whole thing. Maybe I can bring up the ZBrush sculpt as well, because initially I started out with all of this as a ZBrush sculpt. I wonder if I still have the helmet. I don't have in this file. I started with a ZBrush sculpt, but I think much rougher than you.
mm,
I didn't really know that you could get so clean
yeah,
with the edges and with yeah, like the kind of like these details here, these edges. I
yeah.
didn't know you could get that clean in ZBrush.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a bit of finesse, and it does take a little bit at the start when you learn all that stuff. It takes a little bit to refine the technique, but I find I try and get about 80% or 70% there. So when you do this stage, it's it's easy. Like it's still difficult, but it's a lot easier because the guesswork gets taken out of it. And
So I'm gonna go open up and see if I actually, yeah, here I have the helmet sculpt. I still have the helmet sculpt object. I think I'm doing it a lot, kind of a lot rougher than. So let's see.
how do you like that process, rebuilding from a ZBrush concept?
It was, um, it was cool. I remember I was doing it for the first time on like this space project here on this helmet.
Mm.
It was a lot rougher and the shapes were a lot bigger. It's funny. I opened this project up, and I saw everything was like very like 8-sided, and I was watching your video with Matthias, and he was saying, "Don't make these 8-sided
Ah,
round shapes. Just make it round." And I thought, yeah, I probably
yeah.
would not do this anymore either. You could see everything is just super blocky. This was very early
Well,
on in high school time, but
I
then yeah,
mean, as long as it subdivides okay. I mean, does it subdivides okay, right?
yeah, it's up to my,
Yeah.
it's okay, but you can just kind of tell that it's the shapes are all so
It's too
simple.
far from the final shape once you yeah.
Yeah, and at that point it's just a round
I,
shape. It's not
well,
very interesting.
yeah, I think what he was talking about is that if you add detail to it, you need a certain amount of sides to add detail and further detail. I think for those things, it's like it might not matter, but as long as you haven't got like 4 sides, I mean,
Right. No, no, and that's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
I guess in the old project, I just thought a round shape was enough, but it's
yeah,
kind of
well,
like sometimes it's enough, but like
yeah,
it can add so much interest to have like a round shape and then cut a little corner off.
yeah, yeah, definitely,
It can
yeah,
become so interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's not just a thing, but it could fall into then you over detailing everything. But
True.
that's actually it's pretty close representation. Yeah, you could definitely finish it a little bit more, but look, you probably didn't need to for this one. But you can see how I actually that's my preferred way of working because as you found out is that you can visualize you've probably visualized it you've visualized it more than 50% of how it would look in the final result. So then the guesswork and the design look is taken out of it, and I find that like reassuring for when you then you move to these more committed steps, and
Yeah.
and it works really well. But how long did it take you to do the helmet? It always takes a while to do all these things.
It's hard to say. Probably like maybe like half a year.
Mm.
Um, just yeah, I would say probably half a year.
It takes a while to do these, just even if you're sitting and working down, because I think that's the detraction from people doing that. But the thing is, you can't model these things in any other method. Like your that shape is going to be completely unique to a like people. I think people expect to make these really organic but hard surface shapes in other applications, and you just can't do it. It's other methods, I
Mhm.
should say. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely found it interesting, and I saw some people also starting to just kind of like straight up rig their ZBrush characters,
Mm,
and and just kind of like put their ZBrush characters into these shots and scenes, and it's interesting because the technology is getting so good that you can even start rigging
mm.
your high-res characters in a way. Uh, which yeah, if you can make your design that it's like smooth enough that you have like nice enough um edges, then maybe that's perfectly enough to even make some cool shots
Yeah, yeah.
where something is just subtly moving. Maybe you don't need to go through the whole process. Again, for me, I kind of went through the whole process of um
Just making the whole
sorry,
character pretty
yeah,
much. Yeah.
making the whole character rigging, creating a
Well,
rig for it and skinning it, and yeah.
I did see that your character, and it evolved. And it's probably pretty much what I meant by evolving a character, because that character, you could use that character in so many other shots now and build other characters around it. And so
Yeah.
it's an investment, especially if you do a good job with that piece. You can use it, 4 or 5 years from now, especially you can just still you could update textures, you could update things. And so the time frame that the actual time that you've put into it to then convert to like 5 years from now or 6 years from now is actually nothing. It's like putting money into a stock and then the stock going up exponentially, but you put in it early. You kind of put in it early, and you've sat on it, and you've kept your investment. You haven't just like trashed it. And that's how I look at art. It's all just an investment, I think, because you could use this. You could even be like, I'm going to use it in a game or like whatever. Like, I don't know, but it's something that I think people really should be investing in.
Yeah.
But I really like what you've done with this, and that tubing's pretty cool. That's pretty.
That's the one thing that I removed because I wanted to keep it really kind of realistic in a way.
It's more cool than realistic.
Yeah. So why would there be a tube going from her breathing tube?
Well, you could. I could have made something. So you put like a secondary compartment that you need to change out a canister. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that's where I was like, all right, I had this, but then when I started modeling, I just took it out and just let it hang down. So right now the tube is just hanging down, and it would be the tube that you plug in, like the real pilots that you plug in into the.
Or you could put it into like a secondary thing, and then I try and make all the excuses in the world to keep corny, ludicrous details. That's how I try and think of things. So like if they're ludicrous and stupid, I'll sit there and I'll try and work them into the design, and then sometimes they just never work into it. So.
It's cool, yeah. Like that's kind of really where you can make things also memorable by making the dumb decisions and then it makes people laugh and people remember like, oh, this is the funny design with where the tube connects to this whole big canister thing.
Yeah. Well, like I made it for the current project that I'm doing has this like big canister, big drum on his back, and the thing is I have no idea how it's going to attach, but I'll just fudge it in there. And because if I try and commit to things, I'll work it out slowly. And so I think it's cool. I think people should aim to be silly and fun, because when you like make everything so literal, you have such a boring design. You're like, well, the thing is, you actually don't know the future as much as you think you know the future. Like trying to predict the future is like really taking a shot in the dark of anything. So you maybe just make something ridiculous, and you never know. Like, I don't know, who knows? You might have anti-gravity boots in real life, and you can just float around. Like really stupid. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? But like,
I don't think anyone could have ever come up with those. Those skateboards with the 2 wheels that automatically drive you.
Like a motor with the motor.
Yeah, and you just stand on them, and then you like lean forward. And I don't think anyone could have ever come up with those things. It looks so like, stupid.
Yeah, you just never. If it was like even like you were saying in the if you grew up like in the 80s and you knew and you think you're gonna see that in the future, you'd be like, nah, that's never gonna be real. So
I had one moment where I obviously it's hard to find pilots from the back, and then I made this, and I was like, no, this is straight up copying Mike again.
Oh, me, like little backpacks and stuff.
Little backpack. And then I was like, no, I can't do that. I need to come up with something better.
Yeah.
So I kind of like came up with snowboarding or like a motorcycle.
I like that one instead.
Protector thing, and then some cables. I think I had some cables connecting and
well, that would make more sense since it is a pilot anyway. Yeah, I do things like backpacks because I'm like, well, if they're going to be out and about somewhere, they're going to need some reserves or anything like that. Yeah, so
yeah, totally.
It's good. See, it's good not to copy, just be inspired.
Yeah, but it is Yeah, it is kind of like hard. Like you really realize, yeah, it's so much. You learn so much better if you do it your own way,
Mm.
and then with all the stuff that is online, it's so easy to do it, and you kind of have to constantly like tell yourself, no, stop doing that. Like you can't
Monkey
just
see, monkey do. That's the
yeah,
problem. We're
yeah,
so like behavior is so monkey see, monkey do, or like it's like you have just your addictions. You're addicted to everything in life. You're getting a little dopamine hit from things, and so when you look at my work, you get a little dopamine hit. You're like, I want to copy that because that makes me feel good. But it's
yeah,
like, yeah, it makes you feel good, but just use it as like a driving force. And this is because then I get to look at your work and then be inspired by it. I'm not like looking at myself in the mirror and be like, yeah.
right.
It's like,
But the only good thing I think coming from it is because even if we copy real life stuff, like I think the gloves are pretty much actual gloves, like
mm,
different gloves from motorcycle gloves that I have, or like the space
yeah,
gloves, this attachment, and it's like that's that is suddenly okay to copy real
oh
life
yeah,
stuff, right? But also, if you do those things, and even if you copy someone else's work, you still kind of learn a little bit from it. But then you
mm,
have to almost go back and do your own design based on what you learned from those things. So
yeah,
sometimes I do that when I catch myself copying someone.
mm,
I like erase everything and I'm like, all right, now I learned
yeah,
something
yeah,
on that process. Now I'm gonna force myself to do it again, and
yeah,
actually design something. Yeah.
yeah. And it's the thing is, I have a weird thing is I actually I'm not very good at copying as well. Like I'm terrible at copying stuff. So whenever I do stuff, it's me probably struggling that time sometimes to copy a reference as well. And then my
Yeah.
interpretation of it is like, I'm going to do it this way. Then I end up like over complicating it and then making it like cooler in a weird way because I'm trying to fight that urge to copy and then
Hmm.
but I'm trying to reference it, but I'm have all these like emotions behind the reason why I'm doing it. Because if I copy it, then I feel guilty that I copied it, but then I suck at copying. So then I kind of like I don't know what I'm doing. I try and just do the whole then I go into like, okay, trying to study why they did it in the first place. Like, the wrist for the astronaut thing, and they've got like a clip.
Yeah.
So like I've done that before and I've tried to copy it and then I like sucked at copying it because I didn't add enough of like what was there in the reference. Then I go, well, I'm going to add some more like cooler like looking clips and something that would maybe be a little bit different, but I don't know if it would work or not. And then it ends up looking a bit more stylistic in that kind of exchange of copying it. So
Right.
I think with you, maybe you can copy better than maybe me, but you're like then you can like copy it and then do your own version. I'm doing it just
Yeah.
I have like a jumbled way of copying something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I also just really enjoy the process of like the technical processes behind things. So
Mm.
for me, one of the coolest things was to write a script that makes it easy to deform these tubes,
All right.
and kind of like there was no easy way of keeping things editable. I know in Max you
Mm.
have modifiers, but in Maya it's kind of hard to go back. So writing a script that kind of like allowed me to deform these tubes and then have things around it, that's kind of the stuff that I really enjoyed. So I
Okay. So
almost feel like, yeah, like doing things that where I can like figure out a really cool way of doing it,
yeah.
is more fun for me. Yeah. So
So
I like copying.
with the script, so since you have that curve, you couldn't just rig it to a oh no, they would be unless it's subdivision, you couldn't rig it to a spline and then move it or
I guess you could rig it, but then what if you want to update the geometry? You kind of um,
you can keep the spline live. I'm pretty sure. Can't you do that?
yeah,
You can
but
keep
then you would
yeah.
have to almost always reskin the geometry again,
So
I
what do you mean by
guess.
reskin? You mean like
What do you mean with rigging?
well, you know how you get a spline. So
Hmm.
that say the you have a straight pipe and then you deform it by a spline, like a
So.
you go to deform and you have a spline, and so you have the end point and then the top point,
Mhm.
and the tube you've got there is straight, and so you've attached
Oh,
it, yeah,
also I
and
should
then
add
deform.
they added new deformers that were pretty much doing in the last, like, I think last 2 years they added new
Yeah.
deformers that were doing exactly what my script was doing.
Okay. So what was your script? What is
So
it doing?
basically, you can take a curve and
Mm.
then set this as or like click a preview button, and then it creates a preview of a tube. Um, Change it to maybe a little bit smaller, and then I get the preview handle down here. Let me move it a little bit, and so this is showing me exactly how long the the tube is. So now I can start having any kind of geometry down here,
Yeah.
and I can kind of move and do all my
All
stuff
right.
down here.
Yeah.
And then once I'm ready, once this is the stuff that I want to deform, I'll add this to the deformer, and it kind of matches it. It goes along my tube, and then I have
Yeah.
a bunch of options where I can toggle the stuff back and forth, so I can easily add stuff. Um,
That's such an interesting way to make a tube. I haven't seen anyone do that before. Because I
yeah.
imagine anyone else would just like put it on. They just model the pipe, but it does make sense because you're wanting to add to it. Well, I think
Hmm.
once you've got to be committed to making
Right.
making it straight and then putting it once. You're like working back and forth because you're adding to it.
Hmm.
But that's interesting. Like, have you used that method a hell of a lot to come up with that, or was it something that you quickly
Yeah,
came
and
up with?
then I started using it a lot because for a lot of these kind of things, I think for any kind of cables
Mm,
where I wanted some sort of let me see, maybe something that goes around the cable, and I wanted to
mm,
slide that around maybe, and I wanted to slide that along the curve. It made it very easy um, to do that on a straight back at the origin, basically to
yeah,
slide something along a curve back here and kind of figure out. So everywhere where I have tubes, for example, where I have these kind of grids on tubes or like these little cable holders,
mm,
any kind of details along tubes, all that stuff was way easier to slide that thing around
yeah, yeah.
at the origin. Yeah.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I would have never ever thought of kind of looking at it that way. What kind of thought? What when that how you get that eureka moment, you're like, I'm going to do this. Like, what made you think to do that?
Um, I think I just was kind of frustrated because I didn't know if there was a easy way to do that. So
Mm,
it's also what I do at work, a lot of like kind of scripting and kind of technical things.
okay, yeah,
So it's just coming up with kind of like little scripts and things to help along the way, or like also with I wrote a bunch of auto unwrap scripts for these assets, because this kind of these kind of like boolean assets,
mm,
um it would be probably everybody would think this would be a pain to unwrap, but uh, once I had this, I was like, all right, now I need to unwrap, make it ready for production.
yeah,
um then I guess I kind of just had to come up with a way. So
yeah,
I'm not sure if
you,
there's a eureka moment. It was more like, oh man, I need to figure out
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess you do have unwrappers, but I
Mm.
probably assume the Maya one isn't very good, right?
Uh, Again, they've gotten a lot better since
Yeah,
when I did this
yeah,
project. But yeah, just kind of like not necessarily wrote something from scratch, just kind of
mm,
add on top and kind of come up with more efficient, faster solutions. Yeah.
yeah. How long do you
Yeah.
spend on your scripts to do something like that, an unwrap or like a?
Probably usually longer than if I would have done it manually.
Oh, really? Shit.
At that
Yeah.
moment, but then yeah,
Is it
it's hard
something?
to say.
Well, is it something you get carried away with? Is it like something that
Yeah,
attracts you? Yeah, I think it sounds like you probably like, I'm going
because
to
I
do this
enjoy
thing.
it, right?
Yeah,
It's also
yeah.
because I enjoy it. Yeah, for sure.
Because it
Um,
like I guess because you're pretty much like a technical artist slash artist. Then like so
mhm.
you kind of you're looking at it. You're probably looking at all your art. Are you looking at all your art more technical than artistic, or are you
I
kind
would
of
say
really?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
because for me, it's kind of the same thing, right? When I when I see that concept, I'm thinking, what is the fastest way for me to kind of like
Mm,
finish this piece as
yeah,
a shot? All right, I need to do this, 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 and this, and it's more like A to B methodology of, yeah, what is the
mm,
fastest way to get from A to
yeah.
B?
That's really interesting.
And
Yeah.
then for me, the designing aspect of like some of this stuff, like coming up with these kind of shapes, is taking so long for me
Yeah.
that doing a little script is almost like relieving, because doing the concepting is just stressful, and it's
Well,
painful, and it's
yeah.
not fun, and I hate myself doing it, and then I can do a little script and feel happy, and
Yeah.
then I go back. Yeah.
Well, it would be cool to send you something, and if you think you hate some of that stuff, and I would send you something. It would
Yeah.
be cool to see you do your magic on it, and because I guess when I work on stuff, I'm like I probably need a script to do this thing. Like
Hmm.
sometimes I'm like I don't know, I couldn't do it because I don't know how to script. So
Yeah.
because I've just like put all my brain power into design,
Right.
and you're trying to like well the thing is you're getting like you're like I can't do this design stuff for too long. I need to take a break with the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you can't, you know how you're like a jack of all trades, you're not very good at
Mm-hmm.
anything. It's like you need to pick a lane and try and focus on it. And so it's kind of like you're like kind of going in between lanes and you're going, I'm going to do this, and
Yeah, and I
it's
kind
really
of found
tricky.
like at Blur, I kind of really found that being in the scene assembly department, it's kind of really that we're like taking all the work from all the other departments, we're
Mm,
assembling the scene. It's a lot of problem solving. We're
yeah.
lighting the shots, we're compositing the shots, we do environment modeling. So
All
it's like
right.
it's just everything, and
Yeah.
everything ends up on in our scenes, and then we have to somehow make a shot out of it. So I love when someone comes up to me and says like, "Hey, I'm doing this process over and over again. It would be awesome to have a script." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I love to help
Oh,
like
really? That's
make
pretty. Yeah.
other artists faster." Because
Yeah.
in my mind, I always think, I know other people are better at designing. I don't want to waste kind of like my time doing that, because
Yeah.
I'll never be able to fully focus 100% on design, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like I don't want to spend too much time on that. I do these projects in my personal time because I like to also punish myself in a way,
Yeah.
and kind of like force myself to learn things, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
I do enjoy the technical stuff a lot.
Yeah. You do have to, I guess when you become you're not doing those things, I think you go a bit crazy. I think life in general, like you got to keep motivated and keep moving, and at least doing something that challenges you, that gives you a challenge. Because I think people who don't like pursue things, I think you end up like going a bit crazy from just because I think as a person you have so much energy and you have so much like a want for things to want to do things and things like that. If you put it into something, it keeps you sane in that
Yeah,
weird way. So yeah,
you almost have to push yourself to kind of like into the uncomfortable zones of
mm.
things that you're not
Well,
too comfortable to kind of
mm.
like keep you keep you alive in a way.
Well, you'd
Yeah.
do that in the wild. If you were out in the wild, you'd be doing that every day. It's I'm not sure if like
What do you
it's
mean?
like if
What?
you're in the wild, like you're because you're like we're human beings, but we're put in houses, right? We're comfortable.
Oh, like in real
Yeah,
life in the
yeah,
wild.
yeah.
I
Like
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think um we seek punishment for like really weird things. So
Once just
that's what,
closing the window, there's sirens outside. Sorry.
yeah, we seek that challenge, and what keeps you alive. It's yeah, it's very much probably why you're you're subconsciously seeking that. So the challenge in doing things. So is
That's
this
true.
all move? Does this all move or?
Yeah, so this basically, it was, the whole thing was kind of like modeled based on how it would be, how this whole, so this is basically the upper body of a
Oh
mech.
yeah, I remember this moving. Yeah.
And it's almost like, based on a, this is the upper body, so this is like the chest area, and how would it be if it was closed? So I sculpted this whole thing closed first,
Mm.
and it was super. Actually, let me see. I can probably open up the sculpt first really quick, so we can take a look at that. I'm not sure how much time. Do you let me know when we're out of time?
Oh, we'll just. I guess if we go for we can go for like 2 hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours. I'm not sure at what point people stop watching, but I think people watch no matter what. If we're like showing stuff, I say if you've got new stuff to show, and we're talking about,
Right.
I think you probably have the max of 3 hours for anything.
I
Yeah,
would, yeah, probably two
yeah,
hours, two, three
yeah,
hours. Yeah. So this is, I sculpted this first, and this was about as far as I took the sculpt. This was, I didn't take it any farther,
yeah,
but I wanted to figure out like what this chest, and the head would look like with the big shapes first
yeah.
before I would go in, and then the same with the hand and the kind of the wrist and the fingers,
It's really
and
cool.
then
Yeah,
modeled it. I actually used, for these things, I actually used crease edges, for these pieces. And now that you said, or now that you mentioned it in the last video, I feel
yeah.
like I definitely want to start using it a lot more, the creased edges.
It's something people don't use it. I don't know why.
I think I don't use it. I didn't use it on the helmet
Yeah,
because
you
yeah, we
can.
can maybe come back to
Yeah,
that. I had a reason, and maybe you have a solution for that. But yeah, I used it on these pieces. So first kind of model everything super low res,
hmm.
and then subdivided it, and then I just went in and booleaned these objects in.
So you used it on that Boolean shape though, the crease edges.
Yeah, no, so I'm saying these pieces were first very low
Yeah,
res, but had the crease edges
and then
on
you.
like on
Yeah,
this edge down here, and then I subdivided it and
yeah,
got like really nice round
mm,
shapes from like from here to here. I got really nice round shapes for free because of the subdivision,
yeah, yeah.
and then I went in and boolean
The
stuff
the
out,
the details on top. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
It's a pretty cool
then
technique.
I just kind of like animated it out to see that it all makes sense. And so otherwise modeling this at open would have been a lot harder without
Yeah,
having shapes. It's like easier to have this big shape first,
mm,
and then just kind of like add details onto this.
mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's a lot of it is a lot of work. I mean, people look at this stuff and they're like, "Oh, I think it's just like it's always like that thing of figuring stuff out, right? Because that's the challenge of doing something like this, and you've got two sides, right? You got the other side to consider. It's not just because like it's the outside; you got the inside also, and you have to
right.
make sure that all kind of really looks like it's going to do something and look placed in a way it's aesthetically pleasing, also.
And then one other big challenge was kind of damage, adding damage. Once I was like happy, it's like, oh hell yeah, I finally showed all those people that you can just boolean stuff into it, and then
Oh, did
it
you
doesn't need
boolean
to
the
be
damage?
no, but it doesn't need to be like so. This is all the details are boolean. I was like, all right, I'm pretty happy
Yeah,
with this. This was easy enough to boolean
yeah,
things. And then the damage, man, I had no idea how to approach it because like as soon as you bring it into ZBrush, it would subdivide, right?
yeah,
So you can't subdivide your boolean things. And so it took me a while, but I just um, brought it in, dynameshed it,
yeah.
sculpted the damage, decimated, and then merged kind of like I cut out the damage and
Oh,
then
yeah.
merged it together,
Wow,
just kind of
that's
rebuilt
that's.
it together.
So you've
And
taken parts of Dynamesh. and then
Yep.
merged it back into the original.
Yes, exactly. So the kind of the damage areas are all just kind of cut out the
Worked. It
damage parts and
works.
put it
It
in,
really works. Yeah.
because that was I yeah, again, I just kind of want to like come up with a solution that could be used in production,
Yeah.
and it's kind of really fun for me to figure out.
See, I
Well,
thought maybe you could like convert it to Dynamesh, but Dynamesh resolution might not be high enough. And then on top of that, the UV mapping for that would be a pain. And so
yeah,
you have, yeah, that's like you've mixed the in between and done.
right. So and then the Dynamesh alone, even if it was high res enough, you couldn't use that in, or I mean, you could use it in shot production, but people like me who have to assemble the scenes will get
Yeah.
really mad at you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It will slow everything down.
Um, and so yeah, it's a mix of like Dynamesh and then subdividing, because then you can start sculpting the details and then decimating and then the decimated stuff. I
Yeah.
think I actually even just reprojected UVs at the beginning and then unwrapped after that, so I had like some semblance of nice UVs. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting.
So like to do that piece, you'd have to you had to decimate it down enough so you could actually be sane with like merging it back also because um, I assume when you cut it out, because did you have problem with the smoothing, the mesh smoothing?
So let's see. I'm kind of curious. Yeah, so this is, so I think what I did here is uh, I brought it in and then kind of cut out big chunks that I didn't need. So I knew I wanted like damage somewhere in this area, and excuse me, and damage in this area. So I kind of cut these pieces out just to make the dynameshing faster, and then cut some stuff out here. And then I think this is the dynamesh resolution that I ended up with. Or yeah, I'm wondering if I have subdivision. I don't have subdivisions level on these, but I think on some pieces I even went after dynamesh. I started using subdivision levels,
Okay.
and then
You divided the Dynamesh. Is that what you
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I would just kind of subdivide it so I would get more detail on the damage, and then I would go in with brushes and just kind of like add damage. Google some image of like World War II plane
Mm.
damage and whatnot. And so I did this. Then I cut these pieces out, I think. So I did something like this, cut these pieces out, decimated that, exported it, and kind of like manually stitched it
Stitches it
together
back
in a
together.
way that like
And the
worked.
smoothing, like, because you've got a smoothing group on that, right? Oh no, no, you do have no. You've subdivided it, but your
Um,
Boolean, you haven't got a subdivided. It's
I
not
think I
subdivided
had
now, is it? That's not
no,
subdivided. That's just
no, this
Boolean.
is decimated. This is
Yeah,
decimated in here. And then the rest, I think I had to manually kind of set smoothing. Well,
and then
in
just try and get
Maya,
it.
it's just making hard edges. So I
Is
just
it?
had to make sure that these are hard, so that these edges here are hard, and then everything else,
That's
all
on
the
a
damage
flat.
could be soft.
So that's on a flat surface, right?
Hmm.
Is there any damage on a round surface? Do you have that, or I'm not sure
I
if you
think
can do it
this
on a
whole
round
neck,
surface. It's all
I
square,
mean,
isn't it?
I have this here, which has a round, like this is round a little bit. Is that what you mean?
So the angular of the panels, you know, you have the angular panels, because I'm wondering if you could do that on a round. Oh, that's kind of round on the.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just seeing if
that's
it like because of the smoothing groups. I'm wondering how well it works. It works
so
pretty
this
good. Yeah,
yeah, so this would be all these edges would be smooth here.
yeah.
Let me see if I have, I think this is a little bit easier to see here. Yeah, so you can see the dotted line. I don't know if it comes through on the Zoom meeting and on
Mm,
the stream, but
I can
the
see.
dotted lines
Yeah,
are smooth lines, and then um the, the through line, like the solid lines, are hard lines.
yeah. So you
I
just
just
play
had
with
to
it.
kind of manually make sure that all these hard lines around here stayed hard, and then
Yeah.
everything else I could make soft because I didn't need any heat. There was enough, yeah,
So you have
hardness.
multiple smoothing groups essentially on that piece. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. which
Yeah.
is
So in Maya, you don't have smoothing groups. It's literally just whether an
okay.
edge is hard or soft.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in Maya, you literally can go in and like select, let's say, these edges and hardened edge, and then these specific edges here are hard. So now you can see like this edge is hard here.
Mm.
So
Okay. Yeah.
there's not like smoothing groups in that sense like in
Yeah.
Max. But I think
No.
I also have damage on, yeah, on this yeah, this is kind of round. So this worked.
Yeah. That did work. And I guess there's enough resolution to define enough of the smoothing group so it does work. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, that works really good. I think that's just genius. I think I think it really is like, yeah. I guess you got some pretty good tricks behind you. That's for sure. Like,
And then
um,
just stick out some like little pieces, like little broken pieces in there to make it look like there's stuff underneath it. Obviously, this could
mm,
be a lot more detailed, but I was always working on the whole scene, so I couldn't spend too much time on each
yeah,
individual piece. Yeah.
it's
And you
effect.
can
It's very
see, I think
effective.
there's like, if I would put like a super reflective shader on it, I'm pretty sure you would be able to see some unevenness. But
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, like in the whole shot,
no,
you're not
but
gonna be able to
that
see that.
look that works perfect. I think that's yeah, that worked exactly how it needed to, and that's all that
In the end, you
matters. So
can't see anything. In the end,
yeah,
you can't, like, this is about as much of the damage as you see.
yeah. So
Um,
you end up doing more than is needed because you're like, well, I don't know where the composition exactly is going to like stretch out to.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
it's always the case. So, but
Yeah, unfortunately. But
yeah,
yeah,
that no, that's really cool, man. That's yeah, I really that's a lot. Look, it's a lot of work, and I think people when they browse and they look at things, are like, oh, that's cool, but they don't like realize how much you've actually kind of gone into and thought about it and done all these
right.
things. So
Yeah, sometimes if stuff can like take a lot longer than yeah, you're right, when you look at
yeah,
something. Um, so the other thing, yeah, maybe looking at the helmet. So I think I had some. Hmm. So I think the reason why I didn't use smoothing groups, because I do kind of like keep things fairly low res.
mm,
So I guess in this scenario here, I wonder if we just look at this piece only, let's just delete everything else. I wonder if in this case you could use a smoothing group.
the
No, sorry,
creasing.
creasing edges, because
Yeah,
it gets super round, right? But with crease edges, um,
sometimes the creasing can actually produce more of that machined look that you actually
I
get with CAD modeling, which is interesting.
I don't even know the shortcut anymore. Oh, there it is. So oh yeah, so the reason why I don't like using it, I remember now, is because it looks great.
Mm,
When it's at 100%, you just get a sharp edge. But
mm,
then as soon as you're at like a little bit of, like, let's say at 90,
mm.
it doesn't look.
Well, you have to add more subdivisions.
Yeah, okay, I just
Yeah,
added more
and
subdivisions.
then now you can go a bit higher with the creasing. There you go. Yeah, and you go a little bit down.
Uh,
Yeah, you'll find.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I found
yeah.
like that this edge here is kind of has a weird roundness to it, which I guess maybe it doesn't make a
It
lot of
might
difference.
that there's an argument that it you can't look. I know what you mean. I did the same
Oh,
thing when
okay.
I made the earpiece for my hard surface bust,
Mhm.
and I just ramped up um the edge to be very sharp. And the thing is, it actually came out better because it looked more machined. And I think
Oh, yeah.
once you start working in using subdivision stuff, I think we all end up like making things a little bit too smooth, and it's
Okay.
like that. You got like this tug of war. And well, you can imagine that piece there. It might, like, if you look at anything in life, like all these little things, like on the microphone, like there's lots of, like, they're very sharp edges for things, like
That
anything.
is true.
And I think we get that thing where we're like, we get so into the finicky details that we like start overthinking the detail, and like, but then no one's really going to care. Like but the thing is, you got that exchange of like the time it takes you to do it, and then the no one's going to care thing. But the thing is,
Right.
you get the
Yeah.
sharp edge anyway. But the thing is, you save time, right? And then
Hmm.
you're balancing it, like no one's going to care. You care, right? But like that's the problem. Like you care too much, then you do more work than is required, and then
Yep.
it's because you're looking at the details, and you're like this, and you're like looking at it, and you're like, no, it's not good. It's like,
Yeah,
so,
because I had to zoom in this much
yeah,
to make
exactly.
my point. Like, oh,
Exactly, that's
Mike,
my
don't you
point.
see it? Mike,
Well,
come on. Like, it's obvious. Look.
all right, do an experiment. Okay, do a crease one, and then do a non-crease one, and then see how you feel from like,
Yeah.
at a
I mean,
distance.
even if I delete this one maybe, so it's comparable. Like,
You just have to find. I found
uh,
well in exercise 2.2 crease weighting is really good for most edges, but there's no crease. That's what I didn't like about using Maya. You have to drag it with the mouse, and you can't like cut. You can't paste it in. So with exercise, it's actually a little bit more consistent with using creasing, because you can actually type it in or cut and paste. So you just like you have a hotkey set up to creasing. You select
my
your
first thought.
edges and you cut and paste. You probably got a
Yeah,
script for that anyway.
yeah, my first thought
Yeah.
was like, you know what would be really cool? Just a script to either replace the shortcut, or like a script where
Hey,
after the
well,
fact you could select the whole mesh and just say like, set all my creases to zero point 0.8, and then
yeah.
it would take all your creases that were once at 1, and they would put them at 0.8. That
Well,
would be super
I'm
cool.
looking to use Maya. So if you make some cool little things that make me want to go go to Maya, I would definitely do it. But see, so if you set that creasing, you wouldn't be able to tell. And I
Yeah.
remember when I didn't realize, like, because I needed to make the earpiece for my hard surface bus, and I was like, I didn't know how to get the edges to work without me complicating the geometry so much that
Hmm.
I was over complicating something that I couldn't, because the topology gets in the way of the thinking, right? About how to design something, because you're having to think about something technical, which is topology, and getting that to work. And so when you could just use creasing, it takes out like half the that convolution of like trying to,
Right.
you're not so confused. You're just focusing on making a nice, neat topology that works for your required shape. And
Because
creasing
at the
does
big,
work. It works
oh,
pretty
sorry.
well.
Yeah, because I was just gonna say at the beginning, I'm pretty sure, like if I go at an earlier file, I'm just gonna go at an earlier file. I used creasing almost everywhere on the helmet.
Mm.
This is still too late. And then I went back and redid it. So
So if
you're
we
so
look at
right.
that,
Yeah, you're so right. Like if I
mm.
just um could keep stay with creasing, it would like make everything a lot
Well,
easier.
the thing is, I think at some point, if you want to commit to it, you can commit to it. You can subdivide it, and then so say if you're ready to move on to the next step, right? So you want to add more detail and have it like, because so once you subdivide it once, you can go in there. It kind of solves the topology for adding more detail, because once you've got more topology to work with, it's easier to add detail in, and it can hold the detail also. So like
Mm,
you need the topology to hold more detail. So you're having that thing of like, well, I could just subdivide it, but it's like it could either serve as a purpose for keeping it like that, like leaving it like that, or just subdividing it once and then working it and then having your end result that you have now with the
that
final one.
makes yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense because I
So
usually start my stuff like this where I have like where everything kind of lines up and it's all one big mesh, and then I start splitting it out into panels, and then I
mm,
work with these creased edges at the
yeah,
beginning. Anyway, so yeah, you're kind of right. Like, why
yeah.
not
It's just like
do it
the
that way?
next
Yeah.
step, because you've got some topology sitting there ready to be merged with the panel construction, the main panel
Right. Yeah.
construction.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is, you know that, well, if you needed to add that detail there, the detail could be too detailed for the topology that you've got on the panel. So then you have to subdivide it once, and then you can add it, or you could even subdivide it twice and delete a hell of a lot of extra topology, and actually simplify the mesh. And the thing is, what it's doing is it's sorting out you're letting the subdivision sort out the shape in a simpler way from the start. So, because if you started with really dense topology, you're having to work with a lot more. So it's a similar method to what Vitaly does, but he doesn't use edge creasing. He starts to concept something out, and then he will subdivide it once, but he doesn't use edge creasing. He uses, he just starts to add edges, which because I've seen him do it, I'm like, why not combine all these different techniques? So it's a little bit of that and then a little bit of edge creasing. Because I remember using edge creasing, and I was like, why not just like now subdivide it, and then I can move my extra edges in place where I actually want it, and it now it's sorted for adding detail. So it's that kind of mixture of all these different methods. So
yeah, that's kind of cool.
yeah, like, it did work for you pretty well, didn't it? It just makes it easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think I stayed in this kind of area, and then I probably did like these edges, creased these edges, and then I think what I did next was take one step down. I think I have a button somewhere for this, and um, basically baked down the mesh, and then from here I selected everything, uncreased it, and now I had this, and now I started
Yeah,
adding in the edges. But this whole step is not really necessary. This is just me going in, zooming in, being like, "Hey, Mike, look, this looks better.
yeah,
Don't you
yeah,
see this?"
yeah. Look,
Because yeah, you're right. Like I could just kind of
you
stay with this
you
probably.
could, yeah, you could, because you've selected the creasing, right, and you've disconnected and then subdivided it, so the creasing wouldn't get subdivided. That's what you've done there to get the
Mm.
extra subdivision. Yeah, which is another technique that Vitaly
Oh
uses.
wait, no,
Yeah.
sorry, no, I just subdivided everything.
Well,
Yeah.
that's another technique you could do. So, when you subdivide with creasing on, so if you subdivide that with creasing on, it will just give you the approximation for level one
Mm-hmm.
subdivision. But if you actually divide all the edges and cut them and then subdivide it, it will actually like make a really harsh,
I
because
see.
it will subdivide against like that. It's not connected. So it's like, so if you cut and split that edge there and then you subdivided it, it wouldn't round off the edge while subdividing. So that's another technique you could do. And then the creasing becomes just a placeholder for constructing your design. So there's lots of little ways to do it. So like, it's that saying, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
there's a lot of ways to
totally.
do that method. And because since it's such this shape is really complicated, right? It's a complicated shape to pull off.
Right, yeah.
So you have to think of like all these different ways of doing it. And because if you took the creasing, subdivided it, you get an approximation based on that creasing, and you've got all the extra topology there, and it will be slightly rounded. But if you disconnect all, because in XSI, you can do a command to select all your creasing, and then you can disconnect, and then it will separate that from there. And then when you subdivide it once, it will subdivide better. And so then you can re-merge it or add all the extra edges, or you could probably maybe re-add the edge creasing. Look, I haven't tried that method, but yeah, it's
Right. Yeah, for these details, like for these kind of like round details that are added on, you almost cannot go too dense at the beginning. You almost have to go like super low res. So it adds a nice kind of like transition from this detail to the helmet. So you
yeah,
almost have to kind of work your way up from like, all right, I have this, and then a few files later, I'm way lower, so I can add all the screws, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So that's true.
Because if you like, say if you had a next subdivision level up and you had to add all those details, it would just your extra welding of edges, and it's like you having to do that battle damage on everything. It would, but you're doing it on
Right.
a subdivision surface, and then it's just like headache after headache. So
Hmm.
But yeah, it's look, you could keep it and just do a whole thing that has edge creasing, and it would work. I mean, this is
I feel
why
like that's
it was
definitely
made.
something that I would like to try moving forward, because
Mm,
one thing that I also really did not like about this workflow, or where everything has like really 90-degree edges,
mm.
this does not create nice edges in, or nice masks in Substance Painter. A 90-degree
Okay.
mask, so something that has like a boolean or a bevel on it, even if it's just a little bit like this, it creates a nice edge mask in Substance Painter, which gives you all the masks that you need for the scratch details
Yeah,
and all
it's
that
able to
stuff.
pick it up. You mean that
Hmm.
the algorithm detects it? Yeah,
Yeah, and so that's
yeah,
kind of nice about the sub D modeling. So like the helmet is all sub D, but the mech is nothing. I don't think anything is sub D. Just so I had the option to really kind of like boolean in these tiny little shapes everywhere.
yeah,
Because doing that, I guess you could do it with sub D, but it was a lot easier to add
yeah.
all these shapes in, keeping
Well,
it
so you could mix the
hard.
method. You could boolean in that into the sub D.
Hmm.
You could, but you got to be committed to that. Then,
Yeah,
like,
which I
yeah,
did for like
yeah,
this shape, for like all the big round shapes first.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Which is
exactly.
always a hard step because you're like that. We're done with it. We're moving on to it to the next piece. You got to be committed to it. So because you don't want to be like, I've changed my mind. I need to change the shape and
Yeah,
all that stuff. So
that's why I really kind of like how you showed in ZBrush, how you really kind of like finessed the edges and really
yeah.
kind of like just committed in ZBrush almost. That's kind of cool to see that
Well,
that's
yeah.
possible as well. Yeah.
It's for me, it's like if I can like preview it, but it's a little bit lumpy, I don't care. I can kind of preview it, and so then you're kind of like, well, if I've previewed it, but I've done it in like a short amount of time, then I'm kind of like, yeah, that's fine. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that that technique is underutilized because it's to an artist, it's like jumping in and out of programs. It's just like, oh, I wish I could just use one program, but like it doesn't work like that. It really it doesn't. You got to use all these different tool sets and to bring something together. So it's yeah, very much that's the case. But yeah, do you have any? What's that? Well, do you have anything else that's any
I'm not
cool
sure.
scripts or?
So I don't have. I'm not able to show anything from work, unfortunately. I guess this was just like me sculpting. I think I have multiple designs here. Yeah, so I have I sculpted some different cushion designs first, um, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted. But then after a while, I think, yeah, I did a bunch of different designs, and then eventually I went into Marvelous Designer, and I made these cushions in Marvelous Designer.
All
But it
right.
was also kind of like figuring it out in ZBrush was interesting to
Yeah.
figure out what kind of cushions I want, if I want some detail there, and then bring it all into Marvelous Designer, to create these, like gives you all that for free. And
Yeah.
thinking back, I would probably also, my next project, I would definitely want like a spacesuit to be really fluffy and like have, those large spacesuits that they have to walk on the moon. They're just so big. I think that could be
yeah.
really cool to create on in Marvelous Designer,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It would
versus
be.
sculpting
Yeah.
sculpting the from a human shape.
It's very I guess this very stylistic, so it's very effective in the silhouette. But
Hmm.
yeah, I actually haven't used Marvelous Design too many times, but I probably need to start trying to use that with. I just don't want to be like, oh, like I'm going to make an excuse to put some cloth here. I kind of like, um, I try and tie things in for reasonings for like either it's a shortcut to not have to make a joint, or a, a thing of like the design needs it, but like I don't want to just add. I don't like to just add it for the sake of being like this is something that would be I don't know just because that thing
Oh, I
is
see.
is I don't know because I think it. I like to have my bullshit reasons. That's what I mean. So because I
For
can
me,
justify
I came
it.
I kind of came up with like the I was for me I thought, well, I will really want to learn Marvel as designer. I need to
Yeah.
figure out a way to incorporate cloth just because I
Oh
want to
yeah.
learn Marvel as designer.
Yeah.
Um, and then I found this like, all right, I'm gonna make a nice little cushion for the interior pod.
Mm.
Um, and so for me it was almost like the opposite way of coming
Yeah.
to. I
You
don't
want
like
to you
want to
want a
use the
reason
project.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Like
wanna like use the project to learn things. So
well, not a
one
reason,
thing,
but it's because you're looking at it from you're way more technical than me, right? So
hmm
like you get I think you get really excited with technical stuff.
yeah, totally.
I get really exhausted with technical stuff. So like when I have to
uh,
do a render and I have to figure out all the lighting and all this shit, I'm like I like it a lot, but I wish I didn't have to get too technical and
hmm
because I want to get this really good result, but there's a fine line between an artist having to get technical and then getting the result like they have to learn like an artist if they want to actually get a good render they have to get technical in a
yeah,
weird way
yeah,
because a lot of the render settings like it can make or break your render and so or you could like be way quicker at rendering something if you like read the manual and you've understood which each setting does like gamma correction and things like that they're somewhat technical and so um, if you learn it, you'll be rewarded by it. And it's like you're rewarded by making your own design, but you kind of hated it. So,
yeah, exactly. And for
yeah.
me, yeah, and another thing that another project, the Roy Batty, from the Blade Runner, that I was doing a likeness.
Mm,
Another thing that I learned here on this project was from talking to people at work, at Blur, and other people, was just about things about lighting shots. So I first thought, oh, I need to actually let me bring up the kind of work in progress. They're quite interesting for this project. Um, uh,
you did a
I
really
wasn't
good
sure.
lighting job for that one, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't sure about like how to approach that, and I first started putting lights. Like I started putting a light right here, a light here, light
Mm,
here, and then someone said, I asked someone at work and asked them, what kind of lights do you think they used on these Blade Runner movies? And he was like, oh yeah, these Mole Richardson lights probably. Yeah, they're huge, and he was like, yeah, they're probably like uh
like,
maybe a meter wide, you know. And I was
yeah.
like, oh wow, this is really big. And then yeah, they have them really far away, and then it all kind of started making um sense that it's so easy to, like, that was me lighting straight out of school. I just kind of placed lights right next to the model, and I didn't
Mm,
realize that uh that the distance of an object has an effect to it. And so I learned a lot about where to
mm.
place lights to kind of create that. So this is the movie still frame. This was the still frame that I wanted to copy, and the way it started was this is what it started like.
Yeah.
So
It
I was
always your first. You know,
I was
like you know, when you
quite
see your
off.
first iteration of a render, you're like, I should just quit. Like, it's like,
This was rough. Seeing
yeah,
this was it was rough.
I've been there, and you just keep working, and you'll get it.
And then I kept working, and then I started placing all these lights. And after a while, I also kind of realized that I was stuck. I couldn't get. There were so many colors in this shot. So there was
Mm,
everything was green, and the white is kind of yellow. And so after a while, I started to just kind of white balance this in a way that I felt like, well, maybe this is what it could have looked like
mm,
before the green grade. So maybe this is the skin actually looks like skin color, and now I can see that
yeah.
he has some kind of weird bluishness around his face,
Mm,
which is actually was really hard to see in the other in the actual shot. Like here, you don't know if it's a blue light or if there's blue in his skin and all that. So
yeah.
doing a white balance really helped me. And then while I was working, I kind of like played with all these things with different light colors.
Yeah.
Always trying to work on the sculpt as well. I had a blood on him, which the first version, yeah, looked very strange, and water droplets, and it's just black and white, in front of black. And then I think this was one of the. This is a very creepy render.
Yeah.
Um,
You always get the eureka. Do you get the eureka render where it's like
yeah,
now it's like looking where I need it to
and I,
get. Yeah.
and then I think this was the last one where I started adding big water droplets.
Mm.
And then this was, I think, the last one in the temporary folders where everything was kind of like, all right, now everything is there.
Mm.
I think the next render was the final one. Um, but yeah, it was kind of cool going back and going through all these and seeing the progression and how much there is to like lighting and
Yeah.
set and colors and all that. And it's just kind of like the more I did these projects, the more I started to realize how much I enjoy that aspect of
The
things.
technical.
So
Yeah.
anything that I can do to technically to get me faster to that, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So with the raindrops, I know you would have like painted. You would have painted little bits by hand, but did you do the actual physical raindrops and like did you do a simulation on top of
No,
it?
it's actually all just a displacement map.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
yep. So
I,
I painted it in Mari and all my textures.
just
Actually, let me
with
show.
did you drag out like alpha maps? Not alpha. It's like a
Yep. So I think I got some started with some stuff that I found online, and eventually I kind of painted my own things. I think this was the one that I ended up using.
and it's just a
Um,
specular, not like a you know how like a water shader. Just
so
is it just specular?
it's so I tried a whole lot of like adding as a different material. Let me bring up
Yeah.
the final render. So I tried a whole lot with it being a different object, but
Mm.
what I found is that just displacing it and making it really shiny.
Shiny. Yeah.
So this is basically you can if you zoom in, you actually see that it's not a separate geometry. It's just
Mm.
displaced skin
Yeah.
because I had a lot of trouble getting a different object
I don't think
to
you
work with
can
the
you?
surf.
Yeah.
You can definitely
You can
get it
do
to
it?
work, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of work because it needs to the bottom surface needs to be flat. It can't really intersect the subsurface
Yeah.
scattering of the skin. So the water droplet needs to be flat on top of the skin, and all those reasons I kind of had to. I wanted to finish this, so
Yeah.
for me this was like, all right, this is actually the closest I can get to what for it to look like water droplets, and then
Mm.
adding this separate geo kind of like made it look like everything was water,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it kind of helped the illusion of it being. So it's all just hand painted displacement. These water droplets are the same like blood streaks that I found on like textures.com. um and then it's just displaced out, made really shiny and really glossy, and then that's kind of
Did you have
the
to hand
end.
paint any of the blood or the water? Did you do a bit of manual painting for any of that or?
Around the eye, but this
Yeah.
is basically a blood, a kind of a blood streak, I think. Do I have that in this folder as well? No, I don't have it in this folder. But yeah, this is basically like a blood streak texture
Yeah.
from like the texture website. Um, but I have painted a lot of kind of like the underlying diffuse color of the skin,
Mm.
um, just to kind of like give him the almost as if he was punched, um,
Yeah.
the diffuse color and kind of make it blue around his mouth.
Yeah.
Um,
Skin doing skin's a funny one. It never adds up to how you think it looks because of the subsurface scattering. It's always
mhm.
so different. Like you just imagine a dead body, but then you add blood to it, like kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I remember like
Yeah.
your first or like the not first, but like that woman that you made a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, she was in standing in heels or something. That
Mm.
was like one of the first times where I realized because you really pushed the colors
Yeah.
the kind of the green and blue colors,
Yeah.
and I realized at that moment, oh, we can actually push colors a
Yeah.
lot too,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it doesn't look fake at all.
it's
Yeah.
it's where you have like because facial hair, I think it stops the subsurface scattering, and when you've got like your bones and things like that, you don't have as much fleshy skin, so then you don't paint as much of the red and transparency. And then depending where you have fat has an orange color to it. So, and then around here, since it's so close to the bone and there's not much
Right.
fat, so it's like that understanding of that's how I thought about it. So yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of I think I really have I can see if I can drag these textures into Houdini in Nuke. Um, but yeah, I made his skin color is pretty.
It'd be pretty
Actually, no,
off what
never
you
mind.
see.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very colorful from what it actually is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
then from there I just kind of like moved on to do more and more lighting stuff in
Yeah.
my work.
But it seems like what you do is I don't know. I guess I put a name on it as like masterworks. Is essentially like you give a lot of time to doing an artwork that is going to last your portfolio longer than 2-3 years, because um, I think when you have technology and then you work towards just the strength of the technology, your artwork can date. And so the thing is, you're
Mhm.
working past that. You're having to figure out all these technical things, and you're doing a lot more methods on top. And when you put a lot more work into something, like those will last in your portfolio for years to come. And that's really cool. I like to see that. So
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
it's similar with like, yeah, when you do designs, right? A good design, I mean, designs are just not subjective. There is good design.
yeah,
Like,
there is good design. Yeah,
so if you do that, you can still tell in 10 years that it was good design. Like we can still see designs from 10 years ago, which ones were good
yeah,
and which ones were just, photo bash,
yeah.
weird way that
I
didn't work out or
yeah.
something.
I just think everyone thinks they need to just like pump work out and just get it out there. You can just have I think people can just jump from, have your like real big project and have your little small ones that you practice in. But like even on big projects, like when you work on one project, you get a lot of practice in anyway, because you're having to learn all these different techniques. So I think you try and get the best of two worlds, because then at
Yeah.
least you're staying present and little pushing other ideas and learning things. And I think everyone should, that good investment in yourself, like I was
I
saying.
definitely was doing it. So I definitely was doing it the complete opposite before I went to school. So my art station, I think, has like
Is that
what,
your
maybe,
age? Is that your age ticking away?
yeah.
Where did you get that from? That's pretty interesting. I want to get one of those.
I got that from
Is it like
Ash Thorpe's podcast.
it's a pretty good
Um,
reminder not to waste any fucking time.
Yeah, it's called. I think the Chrome extension is called Motivation, and Ash Thorpe and like the Art Cafe
Yeah,
podcast, they had it. It's called Motivation extension.
definitely going to put that up, because man, I don't want to waste
It's
time
good.
with this. Yeah, because you can see yourself get older. It's like it's hardening.
It's brutal. It's brutal, especially as you
I
get
want to get a
closer to
clock
like.
and put it on the wall. Like it's like
Or there's also these uh, age like weekly
God, it counts down the decimals.
um
Yeah.
there's one that is a sheet where it puts all your weeks, and you can fill out each week that goes
Oh,
by, and you see that 100 years just fits on a like one letterhead a sheet,
so what's
and you
that
see,
one? What's that
I
one
don't
called?
know, I
Uh,
don't know what it's called,
oh man, that's good. I
but
like that.
yeah. But I see what you mean, because like my art station portfolio, okay, it's 10-12 pieces right now,
Mm,
and like I started this website a long time ago. I have stuff from 2008 in here, and all my 3D art. If I just go to or like, yeah, 2008, 2009, I was just doing
yeah,
cars, simple like, and then I was happy doing just a car, and then that was it.
Mm.
sort of a gray shaded thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, it's cool, I guess, but no one is ever gonna remember
No.
this.
And plus,
No
it's
one is.
someone else's car, right? Like, it's not your car. So,
It's, it's a
yeah.
car that exists, and
Yeah.
I've been doing this for forever. Just like doing car renders in front of gray screen. It's just it really kind of like something clicked when that teacher Miguel Ortega, when he like told me, like forced me to, like, no, you got to do a shot,
Yeah.
and he made me do like this shot because I think I was about at this stage here. And I was like, hell yeah, next project. And
Yeah.
he was like, no, you can't get away with this.
Yeah.
Um, and doing like just this, it's design, yeah, it's cool, but no one is gonna remember just this simple
Yeah.
design. It's not even yours. It's from a concept from someone else.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's very important for if you
Well,
want to stand out as an artist.
I wanted to do like an art spotlight thing where it's, I'm not sure if I can do it on Patreon or like Kickstarter, but I want to give people goals of either I'm not sure if I do it in 2D and 3D, but I want to give like a goal of like raising money towards artists, and so like give away like 10 grand to someone that pursues a real finished piece, because I
Hmm.
think we used to get more of that 10 or so years ago in the community, and then everyone's kind of like fallen into this different area of like pumping work out. And so like if you can do that and give out money, like big amounts of money, and get endorsements from like, I don't know, like Cintiq or like even like Autodesk, and like make a bigger cash prize. It's like the Olympia of art, like,
Yeah,
it
it's
would
cool
be cool to
because
have something like that.
what I always think about competitions, like even I think ArtStation has or are they called competition? When they have a prize and you have
Mm.
to do something for it. And what I never get is all these competitions. They're never projects that I want to do. Like there's,
Yeah.
for example, a competition that is like make the perfect space castle, and I'm like, I don't want to do a
Yeah.
space castle. I don't want to
So
do something that I want to do. So
yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
really cool idea. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like a competition,
and it,
but
and it,
for
and the thing
anything.
is, and it's like, I don't know if it will work if it's community raised, and um so it's just like everyone picks the best fucking artist at over a year or 6 months, and everyone's like votes for it, and they just win. But they put all their heart into it, right? It motivates you to be like, because I look at, because I like bodybuilding a lot, and those bodybuilders train really fucking hard to get in shape. Now I want to do something like that for art, where you're like, I'm gonna fucking nail this image, or like a little
Mm,
series of image, and you just work, because it goes to show like that's what you can get, like that's what your images have in it, because you work and you're like, well, I've
right.
spent like a year on this, and it's because like you work and it
Yeah.
looks fucking cool. And
Yeah, I think beginning to
yeah,
finish, I spent 3 years on this
yeah,
project.
see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
3 years you spent on that. But let's say
And
if you,
then I'm
let's say
still
if you had
going
an
with the helmet.
incentive
Yeah.
though, let's say if
Yeah,
you
that
had
would
an
be super
incentive,
cool.
yeah, you'd probably get it done quicker, because you'd be, all your spare time would be like put into it. So I think what we don't have is like, as artists, we don't have incentive, and then we're somewhat trying to just pump work out to also impress people. But then what happens if you have an incentive to like win this competition? And I think it creates a different beast within yourself. So yeah, like,
I was just thinking another cool thing could be, it's almost a little bit, I mean, it's very different, but it's almost like a co-fund for someone else in a way where you, well, no, at that point, I would, so sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I
oh,
was
it's all right.
thinking, what if it was a pool where you could collect money and you would give it to some artists so they could take time off their work so they could work on their personal project. But at that point, that's just
That's,
like
well,
a
you paint.
Kickstarter for your own
Yeah,
project.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Never mind.
I get what you mean,
Yeah,
though.
yeah. That's yeah. Never mind.
But yeah, look, it's because, and you can render this in a lot of different shots and take a
Mm,
lot of different pictures and things like that. I think it would be cool to do it. It would be, yeah, it's something that, because I don't know, look, let's be honest, like ArtStation could probably give out maybe 40 grand for someone, they could probably give it out. They could probably, this is a year project, we could give out $40,000 or 50 grand or something like that. It's all digital. They make so much money from everything
Hmm.
else. Like
Yeah, I'm
they
not
must
sure
have that.
what their money flow is. Yeah, it's
But
very
like,
interesting.
I don't know, but I wonder if they would do that. The thing is, it's like, I find that if you look at ArtStation and Gumroad for selling things, they make more money on, they make you pay for a pro membership, right? To upload a 4K image, which is fucking pathetic. Like most people need a 4K image to upload things
Oh,
these
really?
days. Yeah, they make you pay for that. And then on top of that, they're taking like 70% of your sales or like more than that. And so like they're taking all this little bits of change from everyone. And the thing is like, it's something that I think they could probably do, but I don't know why they don't do it. And so that's why I thought maybe I can do it and see if it's like this thing where it's like the community, you know, if you get the community to pull together, and like I don't know how I would pay myself from it, from managing it. I don't know those things, and that's the complicated thing of like,
Right.
if you run something like that, how do you pay yourself doing it? And so, and the thing is, you want to create energy within the community, and I think we like, you go home and you work, right, but it's exhausting to like, after a while, if you don't have an incentive to keep doing that, and then you get, I imagine you probably get pretty tired, like your hours of how much you work would be pretty high, right?
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I right now I work like when I work at Blur, it's the 8 hours.
Yeah.
So that's how I found time working on the project. Yeah. But there's obviously a lot of other stuff that everybody has going on in their lives for sure. Yeah, you get
Mm.
tired. Mm.
Yeah. And when you get like, if you could get rewarded for that, it would be nice, because it just creates that like the energy. I think we had that early on when everyone was kind of doing, I don't know, because I got into 3D probably before you, right? And I remember, yeah, I probably did before you. And I remember when I got into it, there was more like finished pieces, like finished pieces, like what you're doing, kind of like what
Mhm.
you're doing now, with like they'll be put into like little scenes and things like that. Unless I'm mistaken, but I do remember seeing more kind of push towards that, and then we kind of, um, I think we moved into uh, producing work quicker in a shorter
It's
amount of
almost
time.
it's almost like when the industry specialized, so that all the artists, which I guess makes sense because like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, there were a lot more generalists out there, right? And
Mm.
now the industry shifted a lot more to, you're gonna do concept art, you're gonna do modeling, you're gonna do environment modeling.
Yeah,
People oftentimes don't even texture their own stuff. So
yeah, yeah.
and it's kind of what I was saying, like why would I spend time doing concepting if that's not my forte and not what I,
Mm,
because I know there's better people out there, so I almost need to find my own niche. And someone who's designing
mm.
or concepting, they almost don't have the time or the luxury to
Well,
learn anything
you
else,
did
right?
spent 3 years on that, though. You could say if you
Yeah.
spent another year on it, you would have time. Because it's a funny thing. It's like, well,
Yep.
you spent 3 years. What's another year?
Right.
It's like,
No, you're absolutely right.
so
You got me.
it's more of an excuse, because it's hard. Look, it's hard to design, because I like, when I design stuff, I'm like, that's going to be hard. Like, and then I'm
Yep.
like, I'm hating this. It's not working, and like, I'm annoyed. And then you're like, but you can't let that get to you. Like, if you let it get to you, and you're because we're all dictated by our emotions toward something. And so when we often, all the time, when we act on our emotions to be like, I'm pissed off at this, you don't end up doing it. And it's kind of like, you went and you drew stuff, but the thing is, you could probably say that you're way better off for drawing. And like this here, for you to construct that, those, like, these renders look really nice and effective, right? They're very
Right.
effective renders. They look great and they look very polished, right? Let's say if someone came in and just made, like, say if I made my like Dynamesh one, it would look shit compared to that, because it's like you've textured it, you've added nice edges, and it
Right.
looks really finished. Like, And thing is, you could even make that into a scene. You just put a backdrop of like a moon or some shit and some stars, and now it's a
Mhm.
scene. And it's so much more like this effective art piece. And the thing is, like
True.
you can actually like look at it and you study it and you absorb it, and it just has it emotes a different feeling. The thing is, the amount of work that you have to push into it is like, say if you just had concept, but then you're like, well, now I have to finish it, and you're like, oh, way up here, and you're like,
Yeah.
you think, nah, I don't want to do that. So I think people don't attempt this much. Like, and the thing is, you've got how many renders for this? You could do 20 renders for it, and then
Yeah,
it's
I never
yeah,
expected to have that many renders, but I was just like, well, now might as well just keep going, and I just
because
rendered
it
out stuff.
looks awesome, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it starts. It's cool because now I have like oh, it's maybe one thing I haven't shown, because I have a rig as well, and I can just do anything now at this point. I have like, by this time I have like 19 shots, so each one of these here is like a little shot that I
yeah.
have, and yeah, you can do anything. I also tried to put it into an Unreal Engine or something. That
Oh, really?
I didn't quite get there yet because of the rig that I built. But
So you can chuck that rig into Unreal. Is that
well, but I wanted to map the like free animations from like free mocap data on it, and
yeah,
that doesn't quite work because it's my own rig. I didn't use like Maya to build the rig. I kind of built it myself. But yeah, it's like fun. You can kind of like
yeah,
um, start, making custom poses, making custom renders. I can start putting it
yeah? So cool.
into
Yeah.
different scenes
How
and
long
really
do
kind of
how
play
long do
around
you
it with light.
spend to take to do that rig?
The rig, it was like the second rig I built this way. So I found this super old tutorial. Um, it's on 3D 3D Total,
All right.
and uh, I love that tutorial because it goes into, it's probably this. Yeah, it's this guy here by Jahiru Amin, and he has this set of rigging, and it breaks it down into these 9 parts of rigging each different part.
Yeah,
And it makes it very easy. Like you can kind of go back. Everything is in a Vimeo video, and he also wrote everything down. So I wouldn't say too long, maybe a couple of weeks.
yeah.
Obviously,
People
always
don't
in
want
my
to do
free
a
time.
couple. Look, people don't want to do a couple of weeks
I mean,
then.
that's also in my free time. So, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, in looking back at it, it would probably have been better to use like a default rig, so I could
All right.
now put like mocap data on it easier.
All right. Yeah.
Um,
You've got those default rigs and
yeah,
yeah.
but then
Well,
maybe the deformations or something would be a little bit harder
yeah.
to make work for the shoulders and whatnot. But because I kind of like built some custom stuff that I thought maybe could be problematic in the shots. I never even see the shoulder yet, so
Yeah.
um, I'm not sure what would have been exactly the best way, but
To do the
but it
shoulder
is,
blade.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is what it is at
Yeah.
some point, right?
Because you just
Um,
need it to be able to kind of move that little movement there. Yeah.
mhm. But yeah, seeing this now, like I really love kind of the anything like space related, so
Yeah.
um, even like the stuff like this from the Apollo 11 documentary, where with Buzz Aldrin just in this white room, and just seeing this, I want to like recreate this shot and kind of
All
like
right.
start. What if I would put my character in here, or what if I would sculpt Buzz Aldrin and
Would
show
you copy
faded
it though?
lights?
Are you
I
going to
would,
copy?
I would love to copy this shot.
What happens if I gave you an idea, right? Where you can get the same composition, same feel,
Mhm.
but you make it more futuristic or something. So it's the same feel and same thing, but
Yeah,
you've made your own design in it. So the thing is,
yeah,
you only have
totally.
to design this and then maybe design the guy in the background, and you get to blur it, so you wouldn't have to commit too much work to
Right, right.
the guy in
Like
the
I would,
background. Yeah,
that would totally be cool with me
yeah,
too. But just like I see this shot from like the documentary, and I like it as it
yeah.
exists. So it's
Well,
almost
it's a man
when
getting ready to go into space, isn't it?
yeah,
So that emotion that you have
Uh-huh.
in that person is, it's because you imagine you going into space, like it's so
Yeah.
the void of nothingness. It's fucking somewhat what's the word, like exhilarating, and
Yeah.
like
And
you
just
just,
kind of like just looking into his eyes and seeing like knowing that this man a couple minutes later stepped into the Saturn V rocket and like
yeah,
went. I don't know. Yeah, it was the
yeah.
Saturn V rocket, right? And then
Well,
a couple minutes
going,
later, like was in like went off to space. It's
yeah,
I don't know. For me, that stuff is super super exciting. So
yeah,
like
yeah. I
now
get it.
like
Yeah,
thinking about like okay, I could tell that same story with Jupiter. This like it was originally a Jupiter ascending concept art, so
well,
her
you,
name
well,
Jupiter. So what if I yeah.
I've had an idea, because I know you sit here and you rig all your stuff. Like I've always had an idea to do like I know, since once you get all your rig ready and you got all these textures, like you could easily do like a YouTube series of like you could do like 10-minute at a time YouTube series telling a story. So it sounds like you could do something like that. Like I've always wanted to do little short 3D like skit stories of something where you could reuse the characters, and you get to the point where you kind of reusing the characters and you're not having to like build too much, and you've laid down the fundamentals of what you need to do. I think that would be cool to see. I see. I'm not that technical, so then I'm like, I kind of like, I'm never going to do that. But it's like, because I know to do all that, it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
but I think once you've got it, you've got this thing that you can just reuse, which is, it's really cool. And that's why I think doing that, as you said, like you got like 20 shots out of one piece of work,
Hmm.
and they're all really cool, and you could use this further. Well, you are going to use it further in other projects, aren't you?
Well, the only last thing that I want to do is kind of like create a statue of it.
Oh,
So
okay.
like 3D print it.
Yeah.
I showed like a little pedestal before. I don't have it open anymore. But yeah, I made like a little pedestal, kind of the same futuristic Boolean looking design, and then a poster with the helmet holding the helmet. And I
Yeah.
want to see if I can 3D print that.
Oh, that would
And
be cool. Yeah.
but the other thing is as artists, right, you kind of start hating your own work. So now you spent all this time and now I'm almost like, all right, I'm done, I want to start the next project, but you spent all
Oh,
this
yeah.
time. So there's always that feeling as well.
Yeah. You look, fatigue, man. Like you've spent a long time on it, so you're bound to be fatigued. So
Yeah.
I don't think I've spent as long as you've spent on anything ever in my life. So you've definitely got a high level of concentration and patience. That's for sure. So, and
Yes. So
yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing, right? Maybe at some point you're just life's a journey, man. You can't predict what's gonna happen. So like I mean I don't know what if I'm gonna use it or not. It just kind of
Well,
gets
you
to.
look, it's an investment. Though. You don't know what's going to happen with that
Hmm.
investment, and the thing is, you did a good job with it. So, you know, because if you went back to the project, you're not going to be like, are you going to be like, oh, I wish I actually finished that bit of the design for this? You're not going to be so much like that because you've actually finished it in the way,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like for
So
me, I'm totally happy like moving on or even reusing it either
yeah,
way because I know
yeah,
I kind of like have a finished project at this point.
and
And I
that's
think
perfect,
that's
isn't it? Yeah.
super important as well as artists to kind of
Mm.
like finish your stuff and just
Yeah.
kind of call it done. Especially at school, this was very important. Like people would just kind of still noodle on like the modeling stage, and then when it
Yeah.
was time to texture you weren't ready to texture, and then everything started snowballing, and at the end you
Yeah.
weren't ready to deliver the project. And
Yeah.
similar at work now for us, right? If you kind of block it out and then you can't keep blocking out because you need to move on to detailing, and then
Yeah.
because you have a deadline. So
Yeah. I mean, look,
there's a
I
lot of
think,
that at work. Yeah.
yeah, that happens to the biggest companies around. I mean, because you're trying to get a certain level of quality. Like, look at things like I don't know, probably even The Last of Us 2 is probably falling into that, and like Duke Nukem Forever, like, and so a lot of companies do that. Like probably, you know, majority of Blizzard's projects, you know, from Blizzard are like that. Half-Life, you know, Valve and things, because
Yeah.
they're trying to get things perfect, and reiteration is like this. It's real guilty to do it because it takes so much time and money to do it, and it's like saying like, when is enough enough? But sometimes, like, if you had an unlimited amount of money like Blizzard, you've essentially got an unlimited amount of money that they've
Right.
got. So they're like, well, we're just gonna take this time and then we're gonna trash it. Same as Valve. So then they have that in the back of their mind. And then I think at some point when you do have that concept, like if you had tomorrow unlimited amount of money, you'd be like, you'd start thinking different. And I think when you like you set that limitation on yourself, you do somewhat better work. I think you do. I think the work
Mm-hmm.
is better. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you have to tell you have to psychologically tell. Like I've written down like when deadlines for different projects because I'm gonna aim for them. And I think when you have that, you do that. Like if you, I know you can't do that because you don't have the time to. Your time is kind of like undetermined because you're going to work. But if you were, let's say, if you had this project here, would you put a deadline on it? Would you be like that, or?
So I had different time. I have different strategy. At some points in the project, at the beginning, especially after school, I just wanted to do however slow I wanted it and take
Mm,
as noodle as much as possible. Um, so on the Big Mac, I like went in and I like started noodling little clips on this little thing, and I was like, all right, this is cool. I'm noodling so much because you could never see this little thing and it didn't make
mm.
sense. It was super small. So I just wanted time to noodle because that's what I didn't have at school. But then
Yeah,
eventually I was like, all right, I noodled a whole lot on this project. Now I
yeah.
need to finish. And then I started putting deadlines and I started saying, all right, by this time I'm going to be done with this and
Mm,
this. So it was kind of shifting. But I think especially if you're kind of learning and getting started out, I think it's super important to set deadlines and to
yeah.
finish stuff. It doesn't even matter, like having a finished project, in my opinion, is so much more important than a perfect block out,
Mm,
or having an okay block out with perfect details, but then or no, the opposite. Sorry, not a perfect block out, but like the perfect details because you spend
yeah,
so much time doing details, right? Like
yeah.
the professionals like Matthias, obviously they can do that because
Mm.
just like geniuses.
It's
But as a student, I don't know. Yeah, it's
it's
really important, I feel.
it's a balance, right? You're realizing what you're doing at the time that you're doing it. Also, because I think when a deadline, you put a deadline in. I mean, a deadline is not like a cut off. It's like probably a point where you're going, okay, this is the deadline. Am I fucking up, right? Or I have not. I haven't. Do I have
Hmm.
more time? So you can. It's. I think it's a point where you reevaluate what you're doing, and I think because I always think is I always think is like human beings, we're really misbehaved. Like we're incredibly misbehaved. Like we just misbehave all the time. We got that simple monkey brain working away, and we're just doing stupid things all the time. Like we really are, and we really just behave like we're really, really, really smart and got everything together. We're nice, clean, and tidy. We wear clothes that make us look good and presentable, and we shave all our hair, and we think we got our shit together. But like that's probably like the worst thing to do because you're trying to control things so much. And when you're doing that with a project and you're trying to like control how well you need to get things so detailed, that's when you start um, just destroying all the deadlines that you do have in place. Like you'll just go wipe over them. And it's like because when you're detailing, when you're working, it's like you trying to control the project too
Yeah.
much. And it's like that thing of like, it's like you're saying with the future, it's unpredicted. You don't know, like if you just left the project there, it could be actually better than you overworking it because you've like, you know how you get too focused in and you're looking at those details like binoculars. And so you're going through a different emotional response of like, all I see is this line and it's like too soft or not sharp enough. And you're judging it on that one piece. Have you ever been like that with something that like you've made a design and then you see like it's like a mistake that you think it's a mistake on the design. Like there's something
Yeah.
particular, there's something, but you can just see it and you're like that looking at it. And then whenever you look at the design, you're like, and you're straight towards that detail. Do you do that?
Yeah, like 100 times, and then
Mm,
so many times, especially with personal project, with
mm.
at work. I'm like I've figured out how to kind of just deliver in a way, you know. But with
Give over
personals,
that. Yeah.
yeah, all the time where I'm working on this, and then on the other side that we don't even see, I'm not
Mm.
happy with where this is. Is this should be here, or should it be here? And then
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna leave it alone. And then next time I rotate around, oh fuck, yeah, I see it again, and then I go back and I
Yeah.
move it around again. I That definitely happens on personal projects, because it's almost like I allow myself to be that
Yeah.
way on personal projects. Um,
Mm.
so that's why this project took 3 years.
Yeah. You
I
got,
There were
well,
a lot of times that I redid over and over
yeah.
and over one thing. Yeah, for
And the
sure.
thing is, you probably learned your lesson now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And like
Yeah.
it's it really kind of helps you at work as well. If you like, if you say this is your deadline over here,
Mm.
and this is your start, you know you have to have a fully modeled asset, for example, modeled in texture.
Mm.
The easiest thing is to just say, well, half of it, this is modeling, and then this is texturing.
Yeah.
And if you arrive at this time and you haven't done modeling, um, you kind of screwed up. So the easiest thing is to just say, well, at this point, I'm going to stop modeling no matter what and start
Yeah.
texturing.
Yeah.
And then if you follow this step, you know that by the end you have a finished product.
Yeah.
And then you can just start breaking it down further. All right, so maybe block out is this step, detailing is this step, and then kind of like clean up is maybe another step. And then you just do this, and you make smaller and smaller kind of like steps, and you
Mm.
know if you just follow these steps, you have to end up by here.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's kind of like what helped me a lot in school and like early at work, to
Mm.
just break everything down into little chunks and not allow yourself to go over it no matter what, in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Which is always,
Mm.
it's always difficult. It's
Of
always difficult.
course,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but how long do you think we've been talking? I think maybe, I don't know. This, I haven't got a timer
Two and a
for
half
here.
hours Yeah.
2.5 hours. Is there
Yeah, I think.
anything? All right. Is there anything else that's really cool that we'll show before going?
um I am not sure. I think we've seen a lot from
Yeah.
pretty much everything from my personal work, that I can show. Yeah,
All
I
right.
don't have
Well,
thing.
we can always leave it there, and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It
I
was
think, and
really fun
maybe like,
talking to you as
yeah,
well.
it's been awesome too. I think, look, in maybe another 3 years, you could show the next like big project you've been doing as well. So like, and it will be, I'm sure it'll be like 10 times better than this, and like because you just want to step it up
Yeah.
each time that you do something.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
but yeah, like if I have any cool things, and I'm like, hey, I could just chuck this to you. I'm probably going to do that if you want
If
something that
if
you
you
want,
ever need if you ever need
because I'd
is
probably
Buzz Aldrin replaced by one of your guys in a very cinematic lighting.
yeah, look, like, because I always want to do like stuff that's like finished, and sometimes I'm like, I wish I could do more scene work. But if you feel like you want to, then yeah, you pretty much have something that's textured and modeled, and you could probably take it and you could probably have some fun with it if you like. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, and if you ever need any scripts written or anything,
oh,
I'll
definitely,
I'll, I'll like solving these technical kind
yeah,
of like technical problems that make other like artists, like, yeah, as I said, I know other people are so much better at that, so I will also like making
mm.
them their like life easier, because they're gonna
Ah,
produce
so
more
nice
epic
of you.
stuff.
It's
Because
like
they're gonna
so nice.
produce more cool things, right?
Yeah.
So that's really fun.
Yeah. Well, the one for the Maya, like, because the only reason why I really stick with like XSI is because their tweak tool is so good. But I know there's one in Maya where you can like tweak edges and verts and faces, and you just move as you like.
Hmm.
But I don't
Yeah, I
know if,
think you just like I don't know if like moving them along the edge.
so like you say if you have a whole mesh selected and you can just move the edges, the faces, and the
Oh, I
verts
see. So
without
you don't
having
have to
to
select
select
first.
it and then move it, because
I see.
that selection and then pressing and move is fucking
Uh,
annoying to me now that I've used it in where I just drag it like that, select and
there
do
it
that.
is. I forgot what it's. I think
So
it's like holding a button or something. Alt and now Control. There
yeah.
definitely is. People in the chat are gonna be like, it's this. In the comments,
Oh
it's
yeah,
this.
yeah. But I don't think they have one for Maya where it's really just like you just like, because I think every other application except
No,
XSI
Maya
has
has
that.
it.
It does.
Tweak
Like
mode.
I think
Tweak
someone
mode.
posted something similar, but yeah, I wasn't sure if.
Hold this button on the keyboard.
But I think you still have to select it, don't you?
There you go.
What about the edges? Can you do the edges?
Well, you could
No,
go
you can't.
into
Yeah.
multi.
Can you do like edges
There's
and
a
faces?
multi.
Is that you just select it once? Ah, so that's how you get to a multi.
Yeah,
See, yeah, I was using it and I couldn't figure out how to do all of them at once.
you
So
use this a lot, like moving things around like
yeah,
this.
I use it a lot when I build my subdivision meshes.
Oh, I see.
So
Cool.
I just like to grab edges and then move it. And when I need to weld edges, I can just like weld it. Like I can, because in exercise there's the tweak tool has a welding tool, and the magnet. It's like a
Hmm.
magnet that moves things along the pre-existing surface. So it's like,
Yeah, so here
yeah,
you would do Control Shift, and then it like kind of like goes from here to
mm.
here, and you can move points along
And
like
say if I
this.
had like something I wanted to weld, is they don't have anything for that, do they? Where you can just like
So
drag a vertice
oh, like
to
snap.
weld automatically.
That only exists in this. There's a modeling toolkit, and you kind of have to. Um, it's not even meant for this, but this is the retopology tool, and then you snap it, and then it's
Is that
welded together,
does
and now
actually
it's one
welded?
new point.
So that's
But
called,
that's
okay.
the quad draw. That's the
Yeah.
retopology toolkit. Usually, what I do is just um, snap it. Ooh, I'm doing it on the whole. Oh
What
no, I'm
happened
not.
then? And the whole
I just
back
have
face.
like that. I just have like the whole scene selected, so it's so if I isolated, I just snap it, and then
Mm.
I don't worry that it's still there, and then I use like a button up here to merge the vertices, and now it merges vertices on the whole object.
Yeah. Would
Not
it be
optimal, yeah.
would it be hard to make a script like that? The one that similar to XSI, or
So you would want to like kind of snap it to a point and then merge, right?
yeah, automatically. So then you're moving all the
Mm.
verts, and then you can just there's a command to you can just like press a hotkey in that it's called tweak mode in XSI, and when you're in the
Yeah,
tweak mode, you can press the hotkey to then do welding also with verts, and so like it just makes tweaking your verts and moving everything around
I
really
see.
quick. So
Maybe it could come up with a solution for that.
mm.
Yeah, yeah,
because
it's interesting.
that's an efficient thing if you want to make things efficient. Like I think
Yeah,
I have yeah, I that's probably why I've stuck with it for so long. It just seems nice and smooth. But I think you eventually move on from old applications because they've got all these other extra tools. So
yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
But I mean, it's poly modeling. I feel
It's true.
like I don't know. There's just
Yeah.
many other things in Maya that I personally that I like.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah,
But you
I mean,
came from Blender, right?
yeah, super early. But as soon as I went to school, I learned just because I
Mine.
knew that's what the industry was
Yeah.
using. Yeah. Um, yeah, and then now we're gonna start using the crease tool a lot more.
It
I
is
have
handy. It is handy.
I
Yeah.
have one question for you. In the latest videos that you have,
All
I
right.
hear your mouse clicking. Are you
Oh,
using your mouse in ZBrush or do you use a tablet?
sometimes, sometimes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was wondering if you like all your like designs are
I'm
sculpted by mouse.
I use my mouse because it's not predictable. So and it's working like I look at it like it's just this thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like a brick. It's like working with a brick. And essentially, in my mind, if I'm using this versus something that's like that, the wrist
Yeah.
movement, and so when I'm like this and doing this, that
Mhm.
to me is like predictable. My stupid brain will be like, I've done this 1,000 times. But then the thing is, like, then I switch to this and it fucks me up. And I'm like, oh, and so I can try and create something that I wouldn't think with my brain. And this
Like
will
lucky happy accident.
happy accident. So this is like
Yeah.
a happy accident because it's fucking shitty shape to do anything with. And the thing is, I actually started off using ZBrush with the mouse for organic characters and did an okay job. So it's a habit thing, but then I found a reason to do it. So when I started design,
Nice.
I'm like that. I'm just like trying to do this, and I'm like, oh, it's all right. And then I'm like, nah, this is not going to work anymore. And then I start moving because the way that the shape flows, it's not smooth and
Right. I mean,
yeah, dynamic.
it kind of makes sense. Like all
Mm.
the kind of like hard angles that you have.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It just
That's
helps. Is
interesting.
weird. Yeah. Any way to make a cheap hacky trick, I try and do. So like a lot of my brushes are like cheap hacky tricks that I've accidentally found. So like when I make a brush, I'll take a random alpha and then I'll turn it on turn it onto one of the ZBrush brushes, and I'm like, oh, that looks all right. And then I'll use it for some mech detailing because I'm trying to make because it's pre-concept, so it's like messy, and then I can go in and neaten it up. Because if I'm trying to make these really unpredictable shapes because everyone falls into using like making certain styles, and then they go, that's because that's in style at the moment and this is in style, but like I'm trying
I'm
to
gonna
like,
hide my object. I definitely did not do that.
what's that?
Don't worry about it.
All right. So
It's not.
I'm trying to like trick myself into um finding new tricks, and it's like, you know, the happy trick and the happy accident, they're the best
Mhm.
ones because it's like when look, it's why kit bashing is something that you do because you can drag out shapes on top of a model and you find
Mhm.
some really cool shapes. So I try and do that with brushes, but um, I don't like kit bashing in a way where I'm going to keep that same kit. I'll take the kit and make it my own and totally make it into like a refined shape and
Yeah.
use it as a catalyst for something, because I feel guilty doing that because I can see that it's like someone else's kit. And if
Right.
I can because then you learn to make like cool shapes and things like that. And oftentimes I have to like look back at my old work and reference my work because I actually can't remember what I did. And so um
That's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
So oftentimes I'll have like I'll get cutouts of really cool parts that I've actually detailed, and same for because I'm working with Moy lately, and there's a lot of real cool details that I've made in ZBrush, and I'm going to try and convert that to Moy detailing. And so I'm trying to do a mixture of all the methods and things like that. So it's just how like I do that randomness. But
Mhm.
yeah, give the mouse a try and try do it at the start. Use the drag curve pinch and just
Yeah.
drag it over, and then have fun with it. And that's how I made that dick design where
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
I like I've never used the curve tool before, and I was like, this is really cool. And I used the mouse for a lot of the start of it because,
That's cool.
and then I kind of when I needed more refinement, I came in with the tablet and got a little bit more precise with that. So
Right. So I
yeah,
assume like when you really need to clean up an edge, it's probably
yeah,
nice to use a
yeah, because
tablet because you can really
yeah,
predict where the line
yeah,
is gonna go.
yeah.
Mhm.
The mouse is purely there to confuse you. So because sometimes you're your own worst enemy. Because I think with every design, you try and do a little bit different with your styling, and just a little bit, just a tiny little bit different, because it's very easy to get good at the one thing and then repeat the one thing again and again. But then
Mhm.
people will look at your work and you're just like predictable. You're really predictable. And so
Yeah.
if I can be like, oh, that's that looks like my work, but then that's a little bit, that's something I wouldn't do in the past. because then you're challenging yourself. Like you do like to challenge yourself with things. So, but
Yeah, I guess that's one of the coolest things about looking at like really good designs. It's thinking, it's that thought that comes in your mind, like how did that person ever come up with that? Like how did that person, and it's probably like they probably don't know either, because
yeah, it's like
that's
that's
yeah.
that's why I said AI will probably never replace us, because AI is so predictable
Hmm.
in like where it needs to go. It's programmed, and so we're programmed in a way, but we're badly behaved as well. Human beings, like we could where our emotions make us these things that are up and down and like yo-yos all the time. And so when you do art and you've wanting to do something different, try like, I don't know, you could like go upside down, use the tablet upside down. I don't know, like people can draw upside down and it's like different.
Hmm.
And so you're trying to like trick yourself. I do like to do when you want to, if you get stuck on a shape, what I find doing really cool is working with symmetry and working very close to the center, and then going and working over the center point. So if
Right.
you had a symmetrical object, that you're working past the symmetrical, like you're not just working on this side, but you're going from this side to that side, and
Yeah.
you're correct your because you're trying to predict what you have there, but you can't predict it because you're working in a symmetrical,
Yeah,
like
it's almost like kind of like in
trying to
ZBrush you
trick.
would take that, and then it suddenly, while you're going over it, it starts messing with the center part and creates new
Yeah,
shapes, right?
yeah. So you're
Yeah.
trying to find that. Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, and see that
Yeah.
kind of looks cool already. And the thing is, if you wouldn't have thought about that, you can't actually think like that. You know what I mean? That's the funny
Hmm.
thing about that. And so, well, you could probably think like that if you practiced it, but since we work in a particular way, we start thinking another way. So that's what I try and just, I'm trying to constantly trick myself because I'm just an idiot all the time. Like with um, not being an idiot, but like being a predictable
Right.
idiot for things. Like I'm just like, oh, I've done this before. Like um,
Because you kind of like you kind of like build your skill up, that now that you have this weird shape, you can go in by hand and make this shape
mm,
nice, and you have like the skill that
yeah,
that to
I
make it a nice round curve, or
or
to
you
kind of
could start
clean it up, right?
at increasing, and like
Hmm.
you could convert it to Dynamesh, and then
Hmm.
you could turn Dynamesh on and then start pulling the faces around and produce something from that. And
Yeah,
it's something you wouldn't have thought with going straight into Dynamesh on a flat surface with you drawing on that. So yeah.
that's very cool. That's
Mm.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we should probably leave it there. I think that's probably good notes. And
Sounds good.
yeah, man. I'll just just like and subscribe if you guys want more of this. It's and let me know if you guys want like video feed, like to see our faces. And so yeah. All
After
right,
today,
guys.
they're like, no.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you want more of this, and take care.
Thank you so much.
That's all good.